Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 1, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 on Wattpad. Now, let's start. It was a normal day in UA. Mr. Aizawa was asleep in his sleeping bag, Midoriya was muttering while Bakugo was yelling at him to shut up and Kirishima was trying to calm down his angry boyfriend. So it was going great until a flash of bright light came and swallowed up everyone. The next thing they know they are in a cinema along with Class 1B Hitoshi Shinso and Mei Hatsum and per heroes, Principal Nizu, All Might, Eraserhead, Present Mike, Cementos, Midnight, Snipe, Ectoplasm, Power Loader, Vlad King, former hero Gran Torino, Enderhor, Hawks, Empty Lady and 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 we? Yelled a very confused and angry 𝐻𝐿𝐲. Ha ha, you're funnier in person, 𝐻𝐿𝐲, said a very giggly female voice. Who said that? Asked a curious Aizawa. Then all the lights turn on and they see they are in a cinema of some sort. Where are we? Asked a very scared midoriya. I'm so glad you asked, Mido. They all looked at the stage and saw a short teenage girl. Like the picture, the name's Shadow, Shadow Wolf, Shadow explained. They all look very confused. All Might was the first to say anything. What are we doing here, Ms. Wolf? Huh. Oh yeah, I forgot, and please just call me Shadow if you want, again explained Shadow. Huh. You forgot. Yelled everyone in the room, but the loudest was 𝐻𝐿𝐲 and �endeavorWar. Yo, I understand 𝐻𝐿𝐲 can yell loud, but �endeavorWar, shut up and no one likes you, Shadow yelled at Endeavor. Todoroki and Mido just started laughing. Everyone looked at them like they were crazy until Shadow started to laugh with them. About 5 minutes later they calmed down. Okay, I remember why I brought you here. We are going to watch different versions and worlds of. Drum roll please. No one did a drum roll. Ha, tough crowd. Anyway, we will be watching 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵 midoriya, Shadow yelled excited. What? Why the hell would we want to watch different types of Deku? I think we all know who yelled that 𝐻𝐿𝐲. Shadow just looked at him like she was going to kill him. Because he is and forever will be better than you and shitty hero Endeavor. He is the greatest and strongest person in this entire room other than me, and if you don't like it I will erase you from this world. After she yelled at 𝐻𝐿𝐲 he was speechless. She walked over to the embarrassed Deku and gave him a hug. Look, I'm sorry if I embarrassed you, Mido, I just hate bullies like him. She apologized to Mido. Soon he returned the hug. After a few seconds they let go with both smiling. Shadow looked at Todoroki, who was standing next to them, and gave him a smile to let him know he is okay. After that Shadow walked back up to the stage and snapped her fingers. After she did that everyone was sitting in the chairs to do next to Mido, 𝐻𝐿𝐲 next to Kiri 𝐸𝐶𝐷𝐶T. Feel free to imagine how they sit. I will be mentioned some sitting next to each other later in the story. I'm sorry for that little outburst of mine, I'm so sorry, Shadow said while bowing. It's quite alright, Ms. Wolf, but please can you explain who you are and what we are doing here again? Asked Principal Nizu. Thank you, and of course. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning. My name is Shadow Wolf. I'm 16 and I love anime, and the reason you are here is to watch different multiverses of Mido. And before anyone says anything about him being my favorite person here, it's not that. I have 5 favorites and I could have picked any of them. I pick Mido because he has more multiverses than the other 4, and I think you guys can learn a lot from Mido's multiverse selves, and maybe learn more about this Mido. She explained. As everyone was trying to take in what she had just said, Nizu asked, Ms. Wolf, if you don't mind me asking, who are your 5 favorites? Oh well, I will say them from my 1 to last favorite. Even though I love them all, I think I like the first one a bit more, she explained, scratching the back of her neck. Anyway, my first favorite is Denki Kaminari, she told them. Everyone in Class 1A had a shocked expression. They were all speechless, except Denki. Me, why am I your favorite? Asked a confused Pikachu. Denki, I just find you really funny and cool, and your quirk is electrifyingly cool, she explained with a huge smile. Denki was speechless but very happy. He was smiling a lot. And my second favorite is Ejiro Kiriyahima. Wait, really, me? Kiri asked while smiling. Ha, yep. Again, you're really cool and your hair is Good. Your hair is amazing. I don't care if Bakugo says it's shitty, it is amazing, and your quirk is rock hard, she explained. Thanks, he said with a big toothy grin. My third favorite is definitely Midoriya. Like, how could you not love him? He is baby and could literally protect everyone here even without a quirk. And mutter, as she continues muttering about how amazing and cute Deku is. Everyone could see she picked up a habit for him. Anyway, she screamed and got everyone's attention. My fourth and fifth are really a tie if you ask me, and they are Shoto Todoroki and Katsuki Bakugo, Shadow said. Who is fourth and who is fifth? Todoroki and Bakugo asked at the same time, surprisingly calm. As I said, you two are a tie. I like you both the same, she explained. They both just looked at each other and glared, but everyone just ignored it. Oh yeah, and 𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Yeah, said a tired purple-haired boy. Snap. Shadow snapped her fingers and 𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was now sitting next to Denki. You're welcome, she said as she looked at the now blushing boys. Okay, so if it's okay, will you 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿? I would like to get started, Shadow said looking at 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 nods at her and she smiles and points to the big screen behind her. Okay, this should only take a second, she explained. Oh, Ms. Wolf, what is your quirk? 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 asked. Shadow stops pointing at the screen and looks at 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. Well, I don't have a quirk. Where I'm from there is no such thing as a quirk, but here I'm what people call a god, or as I like to say, an author, she explained with a bit of nervousness. A god, everyone shouts. Shadow covered her ears as they screamed very loud. Why yeah, god, but please just treat me like a normal person and not like the most powerful person here, other than All Might of course, she says as she points her hand at All Might. And Midoriya, she whispered and put her hand down. Now can I start please, she asked the crowd. Everyone just nodded except a couple like Bakugo. He wants so bad to rage and yell that he is the strongest and the best, but he is curious of what they are going to see. So am I faced with tears of joy. Mineta is just thinking perverted thoughts. And Endeavor War who just grunted that Shadow was more powerful than him. Okay, let's go, searching multiverse. And video is not mine multiverse found. Name, the one thing. Oh, this is a funny one, Shadow said excitedly. What's it about? Asked a curious Pikachu Denki. You will see, Shadow said as she snapped her fingers and the world/video starts playing. It showed Deku on a stage. Another story I heard about myself, Deku said under a spotlight. This one happened in high school. It showed Deku and Uraraka standing next to each other. We had this teacher in high school. It shows Mr. Aizawa. Whose kid went to our high school? It shows Monoma next to Aizawa. No, Aizawa said as soon as he saw Monoma. What's that supposed to mean? Yelled a angry and confused Monoma. Please can you just shut up Monoma? And Aizawa? Shadow said / yelled as she sat on the floor in front of Denki. Aizawa raised an eyebrow at her to continue. I agree, she said with a smile. Aizawa just smirked at her. His name was Mr. Aizawa and his son Nito Aizawa, Deku said while it shows the same picture of them standing next to each other. He was a sophomore while I was a senior. It shows Deku and Monoma near each other. So he was 2 years behind me. How is he in Ash? Monoma screamed before getting knocked out by Kendo. Thanks Kendo, Shadow said looking at the knocked out blonde. No problem and I'm sorry for his behavior, Kendo exclaimed while looking down. No, it's okay. It's not your fault. Now let's continue, she said, and everyone continued to look at the screen. And Mr. Aizawa was but Deku explained as it showed a picture of the quirk test. The whole theater erupted in laughter. Midoriya, said Aizawa. Mr. Aizawa, I hope you know I would never say anything like that, Deku explained, hoping not to die. I know and I hope you never do, Mr. Aizawa said to the green-head teen. And one weekend he and his wife, it showed a picture of Aizawa and present Mike holding hands. Decided they would leave town, which you should never do if you're in but, Deku said as he watched them leave. And Nito Aizawa decided to throw a party at the teacher's house. It showed Monoma talking about how cool the party is going to be. Hurry, Deku says as you see him on the stage again. Then it's such as to Bakugo, Kirishima and 𝐶𝐻𝐻 are looking like they are thinking. Hey, it's us, said an excited Kirishima, and everyone around town heard about it and we all got up individually and thought. Okay, let's go over there and destroy the place. It now shows that they activated their quirks. Again the whole theater erupted into laughter except to Mr. Izawa, who was curious on what's going to happen. I walk into this party, everyone I have ever met was there. It shows Deku looking at some of his friends. And everyone was drinking like it was the end of the world. It's now showed Deku drinking while talking with Todoroki, who was also drinking, might I add. People were drinking like it was the Civil War and doctors were coming to saw our legs off. Then the scene changed to Deku back on the stand. It was totally unsupervised. We were like dogs without horses, we were running wild. Wouldn't Ida try and stop everyone for acting like this? 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟 asked while looking at Shadow, who was still sitting in front of Denki. Well, yes and no. I can't really say without spoiling, sorry, Shadow explained. I walked down to the basement where they had a pool table. Deku was seen running down the stairs. One dude took a running start and threw his body onto the pool table and broke it in half. It showed Bakugo running very fast down the stairs and throwing himself on the pool table. Before anyone says anything, remember that he is drunk, Shadow explained while looking at Izawa. Okay, as much as I love sitting with Denki and 𝗀𝗧𝗍, but starting to hurt, so I'm going to sit on a seat. Sorry Denki, Shadow said while standing up. No, it's all good, Denki reassured her. Shadow smiled and sat in between Deku and Ida. Okay, on with the video, Shadow yelled in excitement. Another kid found out which room was Mr. Izawa's and went upstairs and took a SHT on his computer. The scene showed Mineta run past Deku in the hall and take SHT on the computer. But don't worry, it was censored. Mineta was looking at Shadow to stand up for him, but she didn't. Mineta detention, Izawa state. What? But that wasn't a move, Mineta yelled. Don't care, state Izawa again. So the party was going great, Deku says as we now see him back on the stage. The scene changed and all they see is Deku. I'm standing in the basement and I'm holding a red cup they see in movies. We see a very drunk Deku. And I'm standing there and I'm holding a red cup and I'm starting to black out. Todoroki was seen getting worried for his boyfriend. Hey to do, Shadow whispers so only to do and Deku can hear. They both look at her and she says, it gets better, I promise. To do half smiled and nodded at her and continued to watch the screen. And I guess someone said something. Police. It showed Ida next to Deku doing his normal hand gestures and a little sign that says, drunk, pointing at Deku. That can't be good, says a concerned Ida next to a smiling Shadow. And in a brilliant moment of word association I yell, F de police, and we see a very drunk Deku yelling over a crowd of students. The whole theater was in tears because of how much they laughed. Even Bakugo was laughing his butt off, but Shadow and Denki are laughing the loudest. See to do, I said it would get better, Shadow yelled while laughing her butt off. F de police, Deku yelled again, and everybody joined in. It shows all of class 1A minus Ida, 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟 and Koda and 1B and a bunch of random students yelling. 100 drunk white children yelling F de police. It now changes to Deku back on the stage, with the confidence of guys who have already been to jail and aren't afraid of it anymore. Like, I served my nickel, you come and take me confidence. It shows 𝗧𝗍𝗪 yelling with a red cup in his hand. It then switches back over to Deku, but white children. Then I shows Ida saying, I don't want to go to jail. Back to Deku. The reason someone said something police was because the police were there. It shows a random police officer on screen. That can't be good, says a curious Nizu. On the contrary, Nizu, it's great, said Shadow while trying to calm down. How so? Asked Nizu. Haha, why you will see ha? Shadow said while dying of laughter. So the Japanese police officer walked down the stairs and got to the bottom of the basement and looked out over a sea of drunk toddlers. It switches back to Deku on stage, yelling "Efta, please," in his face. It switches from Deku to the police officer looking at all the students yelling at him. And he was almost impressed. Once again the whole theater was crying of laughter minus Enderverwar, who actually just chuckled. He was like, wow, and then he leaned into his walkie-talkie and went, get the paddy wagon. The screen now showed Denki holding an empty beer bottle with sunglasses on, and my friend Kaminari, who is now a father. This man now has a baby. The screen then showed a picture of Kaminari with 𝗀𝗧𝗍 and their daughter. Both boys were a blushing mess. Shadow, Mina and Toru just screamed, OTP, while standing up. Everyone looked at them like they were crazy. Wait, you ship people too, Shadow? Asked Mina smiling. Sure do I love to ship people, especially the gays and lesbians of the world, Shadow answered back. Mina's smile grew bigger. I have a feeling we will become great friends, Shadow said as she looked at Mina and Hagakure. I agree, they both said looking at the blushing boys. Anyway, back to the screen. After this we can have a small break so people can have a snack and go to the bathroom, Shadow said as she faced everyone else. They all nodded and looked back at the screen. He grabbed a 40, smashed it on the ground and yelled, "Scatter!" The screen shows a close-up of Kaminari's face with the sunglasses on yelling. Everyone ran into different directions, we all ran in different directions. It was like that scene in Ratatouille when the humans come in the kitchen and all the rats go in different ways. We all ran in different directions. I ran up to the laundry room and I jumped up on the washing machine and I crawled out of a window out into the backyard. Now I'm running through the backyard, and there was this big chain link fence, and I thought, I've never climbed a fence that high before, and then I woke up at home. Please try and imagine that as Deku or watch the video everyone, and I mean everyone, even Enderverwar was laughing their butts off because of what they just witnessed. The ones who were laughing the most were Shadow, Denki, Deku and Jiro. It now shows Deku waking up in his bed with a weird look on his face. On Monday, the screen changed to Deku and Uraraka walking to school. Over Uraraka's head was a sign that pointed to her that said, "Didn't go." "Wait, why didn't I go but Ida did?" asked a confused Uraraka. Shadow just shrugged her shoulders. "I went to school because that's what we did back then, and we were walking into the school building and who do I see but Nito Aizawa, and he says to me, 'We now see Monoma standing in front of Deku.' 'Hey, were you at my party on Saturday?' asked a distressed look Monoma. And I said, 'No, you know, like a liar,' Deku said to Monoma with sweat going down his face. And he said, 'Things really got out of hand. Someone broke the pool table, someone took a SHT on my dad's computer, but the worst thing is that someone stole these old antique photos of my grandmother and my parents and freaking out about it,' Monoma said with sadness and confusion on his voice. The screen shows a close-up on Deku's face, and I had that thought that only blackout drunks and Steve Urkel can have. Did I do that? I figured no, I wouldn't have done that, but I was never sure until 2 years later. The screen shows the words, 2 years later. Why do I have the feeling that I'm about to be mentioned, said a surprisingly calm Bakugo. Everyone was either shocked that he was so calm or thinking, not everything is about you, dumbass. But once again Shadow just shrugged her shoulders. Relax, said Deku as the words fade away. I'm playing video games with this kid named Katsuki who we also went to high school with, who is one of my best friends. How we're friends, both Deku and Bakugo yelled. Actually you're best friends, Shadow said with a smirk. Like hell I would ever be friends with that shitty nerd, I would rather jump off a roof, Bakugo screamed, causing Deku to flinch and look down at what he just said. Todoroki was holding Mito's hand and asking him if he was alright, which he said he was okay, which we all knew was a lie. Shadow stood up, snapped her fingers, and her and Bakugo were gone, but the video continued. Some questioned where they went, but some were looking at Mito to see he was almost crying. Everyone felt sad for Mito, but they were also confused on why Bakugo said that. We have graduated by now, we were playing video games for a couple of hours, and then Katsuki, or Kaken as I call him, says to me, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something." They were seen getting of a couch and walking down a hall. He takes me into his bedroom and then he takes me into a side room off of his bedroom. Never a good thing to have. He shows me a tiny room that is covered wall to wall in stolen antique photos from different people's parties over the years. The screen shows Deku looking at all the photos, confused and shocked. It was Bakugo/Kaken, they all screamed, and I said, "Why? Why do you do this?" And the screen changes to Bakugo looking at some of the photos. And Kaken said, "Because it's the one thing you can't replace." Bakugo has a proud look on his face. "Well, that was interesting," says a shocked/confused and tired Shinso. Snap. Shadow and Bakugo were now back in the room. Shadow had an angry look on her face while Bako on the other hand was sweating bullets and looked shocked and upset/sad. "Whoa, what happened?" asked a concerned Kirishima. "He learned his lesson, that's what happened. Now Bakugo, isn't there something you want to say to Mito?" she said and looked at Bakugo with a calm face. Bakugo just nodded and started, "Izuku Midoriya, I am so sorry for what I put you through and everything I did and said to you. I know you won't forgive me for what I said and did straight away, but you dash. he was cut off by Midoriya giving him a hug. He and everyone was shocked, even the pro heroes were shocked at what was going on, but what shocked them the most was that 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 hugged back. Once out of the hug, Midoriya looked at 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 and said, "𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, I forgave you years ago, I never hate you. I'm not one to hold a big grudge on a friend." As Midoriya said that, he extended his hand for a handshake. "𝐾𝐮𝐿, I am still going to be a bit shaky about you, but I'm willing to friends again if you want to." 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 was shocked to say the least that he never hated him for what he did. He closed his eyes and stood up straight, opened his eyes and looked at Deku smiling wide. He sighed and shook Deku's hand and said, "Friends," and put on a real smile. Some were in tears because of the moment they say, and some were still shocked because they thought this would never happen. They released their hands and went back to their seats. 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 put back on his tough guy face and Midoriya was smiling widely. But what they didn't notice is that 𝐻𝐿𝐻 was recording the whole thing. That was a great moment in history, but I think we should have a break. Toilets are on the left and food is on the right. Please help yourself while I look for another multiverse, 𝐻𝐿𝐻 said with a wide smile on her face. As people were leaving, she started looking for a multiverse. Searching multiverse. Multiverse found. 𝐻𝐿𝐻, ooh, another funny one. You guys are getting lucky, Mr. Aizawa. What do you mean lucky? 𝐻𝐿𝐻? Nothing, Mina and Kaminari. Yes, another good one, 𝐻𝐿𝐻. Okay, let's start. 𝐻𝐿𝐻 snapped her fingers and the screen turns back on. It shows a car with Denki and Kirishima running to it. "I'm driving," Kiri said to his friends. "Shotgun," yells an excited Deku from behind the two. "But you had it on the was here," complains Denki. It then shows Deku holding up a real shotgun. "No, I found a shotgun and I want the front seat." Deku clicks the gun. "I don't know what it's called." Most people were laughing and some just chuckled while some stayed quiet like Ender horror. "Remind me to give you the front seat whenever we go driving," said a laughing Denki. Deku just laughed and nodded. "Wish I could hang guys, but I gotta go hit the books." It shows the Baku squad minus Bakugo walking and Denki talking to the others. "Wow, Kaminari. Studying like that will ever happen," said a sassy Jiro. "Hey, I do study," yelled an offended Denki. "We know you do, Kami," said 𝐻𝐿𝐻, caring for Denki while glaring at Jiro. "Ah," said the rest of the Baku squad in sadness. It then shows Denki with a baseball bat hitting a bunch of books. "Okay, let's hang," exclaimed Denki. "What?" said everyone in the Baku squad while jumping in the air with their arms up. "I knew that idiot wouldn't study," again said Jiro. 𝐻𝐿𝐻 glared daggers into Jiro to make her shut up, and it worked. Denki just looked down in shame. 𝐻𝐿𝐻 walked over to Denki and kicked Mineta out of the seat next to him and sprayed it with anti-pervert spray. "Hey, what was that for?" Mineta yelled at 𝐻𝐿𝐻 for kicking him. "Because I hate you and I want to sit here, you pervert. You could have just asked me to move," again yelled Mineta. "Sigh, Mina." Mina got up out of her seat, walked over to Mineta, grabbed the top of his skirt, threw him in the air and yeeted him out the door. She then proceeded to sit back at her seat like nothing happened. "Thank you for that," 𝐻𝐿𝐻 thanked Mina and she replied. "For what?" with a smirk on her face. 𝐻𝐿𝐻 just chuckled and continued to watch the screen while everyone was just wondering what just happened. It then showed Kiri doing some maths homework. "Hey man." Kiri looked up and saw his calculator talking. "Need help?" it asked Kiri. "I got this one," Kiri said while tapping his head. "You sure?" it asked again. "Man, the calculator is being a PP," 𝐻𝐿𝐻 said but a bit calmer. "I don't need you," Kiri answered again while shaking him head. "You sure?" it asked once again but louder. Kiri finally gave in and put in 1 + 2, "You're weak," it said, and Kiri looked shocked. 𝐻𝐿𝐻 thought as he looked at Kiri he was just smiling like an idiot, as 𝐻𝐿𝐻 would call him. "Why are you smiling? That thing just called you weak," 𝐻𝐿𝐻 asked the smiling Kiri. "Because I choose to ignore what people call me," Kiri answered back to his boyfriend. "Oh, so I can call you shitty hair and you wouldn't care," 𝐻𝐿𝐻 said while smirking, and the redhead. "What? No way, my hair is amazing and not so different from yours," Kiri said chuckling. "He has a point, Kakin," Midoriya said to the blonde. "Whatever, nerd," 𝐻𝐿𝐻 said looking back at the screen. It now showed Present Mike in a police uniform walking up to a car with Deku and Denki in it. "We're getting pulled over," said a calm Denki. "Quick, put these on." It showed Deku giving Denki a soldier-like camo suit. "Like that will work," 𝐻𝐿𝐻 said. "License and registration, please." Present Mike said but stopped and now said this. What, there's nobody here? It shows Deku and Denki doing a weird little dance in the car. Deku suddenly opened the car door and Mike screamed, what, who opened that? 𝐻𝐵𝐺. It shows Mike screaming in panic while Deku and Denki dance while getting away. The whole theater erupted of laughter, even Endeavor chuckled. But still Shadow, Denki and Deku laughed the loudest. Okay everyone, I think that's enough, Shadow said while going back on the stage. Are there any questions before I go to the next one? Shadow asked the audience. All Might put his hand up. Shadow dash, yes All Might dash, what other sort of multiverses will we see? Shadow, well there are a lot but I do know some. Shadow dash, there could be ones where Mido is a villain. Many people gasped at thinking their sweet little cinnamon roll being a villain. People couldn't even think about him being a villain. Shadow, I know there is one where it's from your future, so you all get to see yourselves as grown-ups. Shadow, again it is mostly about Mido but some of you will get to see yourself. Many of the students said, wows and cool, some even were thinking what they look like. But Shoto was thinking of one thing and one thing only, are me and Izuku going to be married in the future? Shadow looked at Shoto and smiled because she knew exactly what he was thinking. Shadow, and there are a lot more but I don't want to spoil anything or because I don't know yet. Face-savoring food. Okay, on to the next one, she yelled out excitedly as she snapped her fingers. Loading multiverse. Multiverse found. The future. Shadow, oh this is a good one. Nexu, what's this one about Mrs. Wolf? Shadow, well remember when I said that there could be a future one that shows Mido's future? They all nodded. So we get to see young Midoriya's future. All Might said curious on what they're about to see. Yep. Shadow yelled excitedly. A lot of people could be heard saying stuff like, wonder what we're going to see, oh this is going to be great, I wonder if he will be married. You should know who said that. Shoto. Oh before I start I want to bring a few more people here. Just then Shadow snapped her fingers and a portal opens up and out pops 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Midoriya, the rest of the Todoroki family minus 𝐻𝐵𝐺. She will possibly come later. The Wild Pussycats, Koda and Eri. As soon as the two small children looked around they ran straight up to Izuku. Hi, where are we? Koda says hugging Mido. Yeah Aizen, where are we? Eri says worried as she hugs Mido tight. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵 soon saw Izuku and ran up to him and almost knocked him down. Did I forget to mention Mido is standing up because he saw the two kids running up to him. Where are WZU? 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵 says scared. Mido just smiled as he looked at the three hugging him tight. I can answer that, Shadow said as everyone looked at her. After a long explanation 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵 was sitting next to All Might. Shoto's siblings were sitting on the left of Shoto while Mido and the two kids were sitting to his right. Eri was on Mido's lap and Koda was on Shoto's lap. So we're going to see different multiverses of my son, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵 said trying to understand. Exactly 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵. Okay, are we okay to get started? Shadow asked as everyone nodded. Snap and the screen turned back on. They can see a plain white door that looked brand new. The handle started to wobble. As soon as the door opened you can see a talk man with messy green hair shaved on each side and a black singlet on. Like this minus the gloves, everyone was either shocked, blushing or impressed. Shoto was almost about to have a nosebleed. Shadow saw everyone's reaction and giggled a bit. As he started to walk he yawned. He walked past few other doors. One had fish and water splash stickers on it, and the other had a pink sign that says, Princess, and a couple of flower stickers on it, and the last door was painted red at the top, white in the middle and green down the bottom. As he walked past he gave a big bright smile and continued walking to a kitchen. Does Deku-kun have kids? Uraraka asks while looking at Shadow who is sitting next to Denki. Shadow smiles big and says, in fact he does. Deku started to blush about having kids. He walked into a kitchen and starts to cook eggs, bacon and toast. He grabs 5 plates and puts the food on them and placed them all on the table. Food's done, come and get it while it's hot, he yelled with a deeper voice. You could hear feet running and coming closer and closer and closer. Who are they? What do they look like? I wonder if he is with someone. Then you could see a teenage Eri and Koda running towards Deku smiling big. Deku gets ready to be tackled and he does. He is knocked to the floor with a big thump. Dad/Daddy, they both yell at the green hair adult. It's US, Both Eri and Kota yell excited and very happy that they are his kids. Midoriya was smiling bigger than ever, happy he was their dad. What happened? Is everything okay? Yelled another deep voice as they came running out. You can see an older-looking Shoto Todoroki with a worried look on his face as he heard the thump from Deku falling. Yeah, we're okay, Sho, they are just excited, Midoriya says, looking at the kids still on his stomach. Thank All Might, I thought it was another villain, Shoto said as he walked towards Izuku on the floor. He picked up Kota off Izuku. Papa put me down, Kota yelled at Shoto. Everyone was shocked but happy because most knew about their relationship while some didn't. Should Endeavor War yelled, scaring most people there. Midoriya was scared because he thought Endeavor was going to kill him. Yes, Shoto said in his normal monotone voice. My son is not allowed to be gay, it's a sin, all gay people should dash. Endeavor War yelled, it made me so mad to write this, I'm sorry, but he was cut off by Shadow. Shut up, you useless human. If you wanna yell about being gay is a sin, then you should just die yourself, you useless beach. How would you feel if you were hated and abused for being who you are? Shadow yelled, shocking everyone. But it didn't stop there. Endeavor got angry. I would stand up for myself instead of being a weak little brat like that kid, he yelled while pointing at Izuku. Midoriya was on the verge of tears. Shoto was angry and was going to say something, but he stopped when he saw Shadow. She had electricity flowing around her, like Denki's, only yellow, white, and purple. Shut up, shut up, shut up, she said as she shot Endeavor War with a large lightning bolt and knocked him out. Okay, let's continue, she said, clearly still angry. She just walked over and gave Deku a hug, then walked over to Denki and 𝐶INSO and hugged them to try and calm down. They happily smiled at her and hugged her back, and the screen continues. Nah, I'm good, Shoto says to the squirming Kota. Papa put him down, says another female voice. Both Deku and Shoto turn around to see a tallish girl with long hair, red on her left and white on her right and green tips at the bottom part of her hair, one of her eyes blue and the other green. She was wearing a school uniform. Whoa, who is this? Mina asked Shadow. You will see, Shadow answered. Morning, 𝐾𝐮𝐬, Midoriya says to the girl. Mornin', Dad, 𝐾𝐮𝐬 answered. Sis, both Eri and Kota yell. Shoto dropped Kota and both Eri and Kota ran other to hug their sister. Whoa, she's hot, guess who Mineta state. Shadow was just starting to calm down, but now she was angry again, but no one knew why. I mean, everyone was angry, but she was fuming. Say it again, Shadow said, facing Mineta. As soon as he saw her face, you could have sworn he saw a ghost. That's what I thought, she said as she continued to hug Denki and 𝐶INSO. Everyone was so caught up on talking they forgot about the food. Well, almost everyone. The food, 𝐾𝐮𝐬 says while looking at her phone, texting her friend. After eating, they all got in the car and started to drive to you. When they got there, 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬 hugged her parents and went off into the school gate. Are you two going to be okay? Midoriya asked the two amazed kids. Yeah, we'll be fine, Daddy, Eri said, still staring at the gate. Well, give us a call if anyone gives you any trouble, Shoto says to the kids, finally getting their attention. We'll be fine, Papa, if anyone gives us trouble we will beat them up, Kota says with a grin. Midoriya stared at him with shock on his face. Never beat anyone up unless it's a villain or self-defense, Midoriya told the kids that are sitting in his lap. They both just nodded and stared at the screen. They have been hanging around Kakin too much, Midoriya thought while looking at Kota. Everyone laughed at this, even Bakugo chuckled. Endeavor War is still knocked out. No, Kota, you don't beat anyone up unless it's a villain or self-defense, Midoriya told Kota, smiling. He just nodded and him and Eri started to walk into you. Back with 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬, 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬 walked into the school and suddenly got hugged from behind and her eyes covered. She screen only showed 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬's face with hands over her eyes. Guess who? Said a female voice behind her. Are you my shitty-haired girlfriend? 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬 asked the voice. I think I know where this is going, Kiri said, looking at Bakugo, then Shadow. Shadow just smiled. What? No way, my hair is awesome, the girl's voice said as she let go of 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬's eyes, but 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬 kept her eyes closed. The voice reveals a girl a bit taller than 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬 with red-dyed hair with blonde roots, red eyes and a sharp toothy grin. Wait, is that? Bakugo started looking at the screen. He just watch, Shadow chuckled looking at Bakugo. Babe, open your eyes, the redhead said to the multicolored-haired girl. Nope, if you're not my shitty-haired girlfriend then I guess I don't want to look at you, 𝐾𝐻𝐮𝐬 said with a smirk. You sound like my dad, the redhead said again. Aw, that's cute, but I don't know your dad, Nadamo, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said with a shrug of her shoulders. If you're not going to look at me, then no kisses and hugs for a week, Emma said, standing in front of 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 shot open her eyes. Hey babe, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said with a closed eyes smile. You're too much like your dad with that smile, Emma said, blocking her eyes. Where do you think I got it from my papa? I love him, but dad has a better smile, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said, looking at her girlfriend's smiling eyes open. She's not wrong, Shoto said, looking at Mido. Mido said, embarrassed. Shoto chucked at his boyfriend. Let's get to class, cutie, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said, winking at Emma. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 started walking to class, leaving a hard, blushing Emma. Emma shook her head and ran up to 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽. So what do you think we will be doing today? Emma asked 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽. Who knows, to be honest. Let's just hope the teacher isn't gonna be a beach again and make us verse each other again, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said, looking at her phone again. Yeah, that was really unfair, Emma said, looking at 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽. Yeah, you ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks and I almost got killed by Uncle Kakin, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 exclaimed, looking up from her phone to her girlfriend, who has a big smile. Everyone was shocked that Bakugo and Kirihima's kid was in the hospital for that long and that Midoriya and Todoroki's kid was that strong. Yeah, and I didn't see you use your quirks once when we were fighting, Emma said, looking at a door that says 2A on it. What? Literally everyone asked. How is she that strong? Bakugo, Kirishima, Todoroki and Mido yelled, standing up, looking at a smiling Shadow. She's Mido's daughter, she answered with a shrug. That doesn't explain why she's that strong. She put our kid in the hospital for 2 weeks. Without using her quirk, Bakugo yelled again. Just watch, Shadow answered. They all just sat down and watched the screen again. When they got to class, they saw all their classmates. I'm too lazy at the moment, so I will say them later. The teacher then says they will be going to the USJ for training. The class were all very excited to be doing hero work, especially 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 and Emma. Yes, I can train more on my quirks, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 thought. Yay, I can finally see 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 use all her quirks, Emma thought. When they got there, what they saw could change their lives. To be continued, what? Once again everyone yelled minus end ever because F that 𝐻D and he is still knocked out. What happened? They asked / yelled at Shadow. She just covered her ears and ran up to the stage. Listen, I'm sorry, but it must have gotten too long, so that it got cut into parts. This was part 1 and I will see if we can continue to part 2, she explained while everyone calmed down and sat back in their seats. Mrs. Wolf, how many parts will there be of that world? 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 asked curiously. I don't know, to be honest, sorry, she said while bowing. No, it's okay, I am just curious, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 said to Shadow as she straightened back up. So what did you think so far? Shadow asked the crowd. It was awesome / manly, everyone yelled. Shadow smiled widely that everyone liked it. I'm glad you like it. Has anyone got any questions before we continue? She asked again. Mina put her hand up. Yes, Mina? Shadow said, pointing at the girl. Why did you look like you were going to kill my Netta when he said 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 was hot? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure everyone was angry, but you looked like you would have killed him then and there, Mina said with a curious and worried tone in her voice. Well, it's because she is actually my best friend, Shadow answered, scratching the back of her neck as she whispered the last part. Sorry, what was that? All Might asked. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 and Emma are actually my best friends, she said while smiling bright at everyone. Everyone's jaw dropped. Why you mean? Everything we just watched is real and is going to happen, Mina asked. Haha, wipe, Shadow says quietly. I know this is not what's going to happen in the show, this is just what's happening in my book / story. Everyone was shocked, sure, but the 4 people who knew they were going to be parents were very happy. Mido, Todoroki, Kiri and Baku. Okay, so can we see what the next one is? Shadow asked, a bit more normal than when she was nervous a minute ago. Everyone nodded and then Shadow snapped her fingers and went back to sit with Denki and 𝐮𝐻𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, and the screen then started. Multiverse loading. Multiverse found. What's happening? Yelled a confused Denki. I don't know, hang on, Shadow said as she ran up to the stage and snapped her fingers. The screen started to light up and the word, memes, was on it. Shadow looked at the screen confused as to what's happening. What does memes have to do with anything? Asked a confused 𝐮𝐻Ɬ𝐡𝐨𝐫. I don't know, hang on, I'm gonna break something, Shadow said as everyone just looked at her weird. Shadow then proceeded to look at the 4th wall and yelled, Why, what's going on, author-chan? Well, I think you all would like to look at some memes before we continue with the next DEKUVERSE, said a calm, deepish feminine voice said. Oh well, yeah, if you wanted that would be awesome, Shadow said, still looking at the fourth wall. Okay, who said that? Bakugo yelled at the strange voice they heard. Don't worry about it. Anyway, let's look at some memes, Shadow yelled excitedly. What's this memes? Yelled the meme lords. You can decide who they are. All I'm saying is that Denki and Mina are definitely two of them. Okay, okay, Shadow said, snapping her fingers, going back to sitting with Denki and Shinso. Oh, everyone said at the blushing Deku. I can confirm I won't say/do this. To do said, half smiling at everyone. We know you would show, Mito said, chuckling nervously. After they saw this, all of class 1A started laughing. All Might coughed up some BLD and started to laugh. Mr. Aizawa looked at Mito and said, "Stop breaking your bones, Midoriya." Mito replied with, "Nope, it defines who I am," with the same face as the picture. Soon enough the whole theater started to laugh. To-do whispered in Mito's ear so no one could hear, and as soon as he did, Mito stopped laughing and went as red as Kirishima's hair. "I'll stop," Mito said, looking back at the screen. To-do had a smirk on his face and looked back at the screen too. Soon enough everyone was settled down. "Oh, hang on, I need to bring someone or some people here," Shadow says as she runs back on the stage and snapped. The League of Villains were on the stage. Everyone was shocked to see the villains here. "Where are we?" Dabi asked. "No one in particular." "I can explain," Shadow said, smiling at the people who just arrived. After explaining, "So we're here to watch multiverses." "Oh, the green-haired kid, Shigarji, I can't spell, sorry," loudly crying face. "Yes you are, but at the moment we are looking at memes, and the next one I think Dabi is going to love," Shadow says, smiling at Dabi. "How so?" Dabi asked, confused. Snap, the villains were seated up the front so they can't hurt anyone even if they don't have their quirks. Dabi was still standing at the front along with the rest of the Todoroki family minus Rei. Endeavor War is awake but couldn't care less about anything at the moment. "Okay, ready?" Shadow asked the family. They all nodded. Shadow smiled and watched the screen with the next picture come up. All of the people at the front started laughing their butts off. Fayumi just chuckled lightly, but the boys were dying of laughter so much so they were on the floor. Some people in the audience even started to laugh. Shadow was laughing just as much as the boys at the front. Now Endeavor was a different story. He was angry, like really angry. Shadow saw this and walked up to Koda. "Hey Koda, can I have a high five?" Shadow said to the small boy, smiling. He looked confused but gave her a high five anyway. Shadow then looked at Endeavor and raised her hand, and water spurted out, hitting Endeavor War in the face. "Let's continue," Shadow yelled, getting everyone's attention. Most, not all, were confused as to how she used Koda's quirk but continued anyway. Everyone went back to their seats. "Oh no, Dabi, you are sitting next to Shoto," Shadow said with a smile. "What, why?" Dabi asked, shaking and confused. Sai snapped, "There, don't ask questions, just do it." Shoto and everyone around them was either scared or confused. "Okay, let's go," Shadow said, looking back at the screen with Denki and Shinso. Yes, I have," both Shadow and Kiri says. They look at each other and start laughing. "And no comment," Bakugo stuttered. "I'm not sure that's how it works," Kiri says. Most people just said, "Oh," in a sad way when Kiri said that. "Oh my all might, it is like that," Shadow screamed out of happiness. "I love that smile," both To-do and Mito thought, looking at each other's picture. "Adorable idiot/smile," both Baku and Kiri thought. Both boys were blushing redder than both Crimson and Red Riot. Crimson and Red Riot who? Shadow walked looking at both boys. Some started to laugh at what she said and at the boys. "Well, that is something, isn't it?" "Tuya?" Shadow asked/said, smirking at Dabi. "Tuya?" asked Tia. All of the Todoroki siblings say, looking at him. "Hey guys," he says, smiling at them. Then Shoto did the unthinkable. He hugged him, as did the other two siblings. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was so confused and shocked, but what shocked them the most was that both Mito, Shadow and Hawks screamed, "Finally!" and collapsed on the floor. "Wait, you knew?" almost everyone yelled. "Well duh," the three said, walking up to the stage. "Wait, Izu, how did you know and not tell me?" Shoto said, shocked that his own boyfriend didn't tell him his brother was alive or a villain. "Don't get mad at his Shoto, I told him not to tell you." 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said as 𝗀𝗱 looked confused and hurt. Okay, how did you three know it was him? 𝐻𝐿𝐿 and All Might asked the three standing on the stage. Well, they started. We're his friends, said both Deku and Shadow with a big bright smile. Some had to cover their eyes as to how pure it was. And I will. Hawks started as he looked at the said endeavor. Both Deku and Shadow gave him a small smile and nod to continue. I'm his boyfriend, Hawks says looking down at the ground. Most were shocked to hear a pro-hero was dating a villain. Deku and Shadow looked down as well in shame and guilt for not saying anything. We're sorry, the three said still looking down. 𝗀𝗱 and 𝐀𝐮 stood up and walked to the boyfriends and gave them an unexpected passionate kiss on the lips. Denki and 𝗫𝐿 stood up and went over and gave Shadow a big hug letting her know it was okay. It is alright, but I don't understand how you yourself young midoriya is friends with a villain, All Might said / asked confused. Well, contrary to what you believe, I'm not that innocent, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 said to the audience. /my people, damn right you're not. I met this shorty drunk a while back, 𝐀𝐮 says with a grin. 𝐻𝐿𝐿 just stood there smiling with his eyes closed. Then all hell broke loose. What? When did you drink? How old are you again? What the hell? Everyone screamed different questions at the small broccoli. 𝐻𝐿𝐿 looked at Shadow for a little help, so she nodded and screamed, okay, you little F, shut up if I will make you, with the electricity flowing around her again. Everyone went quiet and sat back down. They all had a look of shock and fear on their faces. Mama Inko showed no expression since she knew about it. She just smiled a little. Everyone in class 1A thought he was an innocent little bean, but boy were they wrong. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, you can explain now, Shadow said with a smile, still hugging Denki and 𝗫𝐿 by their sides. Thank you. To answer some of your questions that I got out of that rage, when I met 𝐀𝐮, yes, I was drunk, but only because something happened that day and I was stressed. I went for a walk and got lost. I found a bar and went and had a few. Deku explained, but 𝐀𝐮 butted in saying, a lot. Yeah, whatever, a lot to drink, and when I started to black out I was helped by Deku. He helped me back home, gave me his number, and then I woke up. I remembered everything that happened. I told my mum and she forgave me, he finished explaining as everyone had a face of shock. Oh yeah, and this was about 2 years ago, he said with one eye closed. Everyone's jaws were on the ground. Okay, so let's continue with the memes, snap, Shadow said and snapped her fingers. Everyone was speechless but continued anyway. 𝐻𝐿𝐿 knew there was going to be a lot of questions when this was over, but he didn't mind. The truth had to come out one day. Okay, next one, Shadow said sitting between Denki and 𝗫𝐿. I love you, 𝗀𝗱, but… Yes, you did, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 said holding 𝗀𝗱's hand. Yeah, but not anymore, 𝗀𝗱 said squeezing 𝐻𝐿𝐿's hand tight. Some / most laughed at this. Ha ha ha. Shadow and Denki laughed / said. All laughed at the meme and what they said. This is a comic, but it's so cute, Shadow says squealing. Can confirm this has happened countless times, 𝗀𝗱 says with a full smile. But I like cinnamon buns, 𝐻𝐿𝐿 whined. No, it's cannibalism no more for you, Shadow said dramatically. Everyone laughed and some awed at this. Everyone minus 𝗫𝐿𝐴 laughed at this. Everyone laughed again harder minus 𝗫𝐿𝐴 harder laughter mostly by the gays and lesbians of the world. Okay, a couple more then we will see if we can go on to the next one, Shadow announced. This has happened too many times, Shigaragi says I still don't know how to spell it, sorry. Everyone laughs at this, especially Detuya and Toga. I love you babe but you are slow, laughed Kiri. Yeah I know, love you too shitty hair, Bakugo whispered to Kiri. But everyone heard but kept their mouth shut because they don't really want to die yet. Okay, one more, everyone, Shadow yelled. Some said, oh, and some nodded and said, okay. All is very true, 𝗀𝗱 says as he puts a blushing Deku on his lap. Everyone laughed again minus 𝗫𝐿𝐴. Okay everyone, that's it for the memes, Shadow said walking back to the stage. What did everyone think? Shadow asked. I loved it, it was amazing, it was hilarious, could be heard. I'm glad you all liked it, Shadow said scratching the back of her neck. Okay, so I don't know what the next world is going to be about, but I do have this picture that gives us an idea about it. Would you like to see it? Shadow asked with a shaky voice. Ms. Wolf, may I ask why do you seem to be shaken or scared? 𝐻𝐿𝐿 asked Shadow with a worried look. Shadow looked at Izuku with a sad look. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, she said. Yeah, He replied with a worried tone. I'm sorry, but I am going to have to get you, Eri, Kota and Inko to leave for this, she said, almost crying. He looked confused but nodded. Shadow made a small sad smile and snapped they were gone. Don't worry, they are safe. They're just in a soundproof room with toys, food and drink, and a bathroom, so they're safe, she said with a tear going down her cheek. Face not but. Everyone noticed that she was about to cry, so they got worried for their friend eminently. Okay, let me show you the photo, she said, looking at the screen as soon as they saw that some started to cry without even knowing what's going to happen. Shoto and Mr. Aizawa sat in shock with tears flowing out their eyes. I don't know what's going to go happen B, but I can tell it won't be good, she said, full on crying, running over to a crying Denki and Shinso, hugging them both tightly with them hugging back. Let's just start please. She snapped her fingers and the screen went back on. Loading multiverse. Multiverse found. Deku and Dadzawa. Huh, most of the still crying people said. Oh, I know what that means, Shadow and Mina said, smiling a bit. Care to explain? A worried Aizawa said, but still in his monotone voice. It means it could be happy or sad, the picture just might mean a different thing. Or something like that, Shadow said, wiping her eyes and smiling. So it could still be happy, Akiko said. I don't know yet until we watch it, Shadow said, still hugging Denki and Shinso's sides while sitting between them. Okay, let's huh? Shadow stopped explaining when she felt a vibration from her pocket. She reached into her pocket and grabbed her phone, and what she saw, she smiled too. She walked up to the stage and put her phone onto the screen and showed 2 more pictures. What are you doing, Shadow-chan? Tsu asked. Here, look at this other photo I just got from a friend about this world, Shadow said as the screen turned on and showed 2 photos. Oh, most everyone said while smiling. There is another one, Shadow said while looking at her phone. Again, almost everyone said, oh, how cute. Okay, now on to the world, Shadow said, smiling, grabbing her phone and going back to Denki and Shinso. Okay, so this is a story on how I became the greatest underground hero in the world, a voice said while it showed a figure running across the roofs of buildings. The figure stopped on the roof and walked out of the shadows. And what you saw is an older/taller looking Izuku Midoriya. Holy see, he looks ripped, Denki says/yells. So manly, Kirishima and Tetsu yells. Aizawa is impressed and worried at the same time. Same as Shoto, he is worried about his boyfriend but also impressed about his looks. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning about how I became who I am today, Izuku said/explained while looking out to the city. I wouldn't be where I am today without my old man, my father, the person who trained me to be strong, and his name is. Everyone is on the edge of their seats, very curious of who it is, but some already figured it out. His name is Mr. Shota Aizawa himself. Izuku finishes as the screen switched to baby Mido on the streets. Everyone was shocked, but most knew it was going to be him. Whoa, now I know why it is called Deku and Dadzawa. Mr. Aizawa is Mido's dad, Denki said as he looked at Mr. Aizawa. It shows a younger Mido walking on the streets by himself, looking sad and scared. Please be okay, Aizu, Shoto thought. Hello, is anyone there? Little Izuku yelled out to the dark street. What's a young kid doing out and about on a street like this alone? A raspy man's voice said, walking towards Izuku. Who are you? Izuku asked the man. Someone who is going to sell you the black market? The man said, picking up Izuku by his shirt. Let me go, Izuku yelled, trying to get out of the man's hands. Everyone was either crying or very worried for Mido minus Endeavor. Come on, Aizawa/me, save him, everyone, and Mr. Aizawa thought. Stop squirming, kid, or you're going to get hurt bad, the man said to Izuku, who kept trying to escape. Put him down, another deep and tired voice said behind Izuku. The man with the deep and tired voice walked out of the shadows, and you can clearly see Mr. Aizawa himself. Everyone minus Endeavor was relieved. What did you say to me? The man holding Izuku said. You heard me. Down, Aizawa said to the man. Activating his quirk. The man got scared and dropped Izuku. Izuku hit his head on the ground and passed out from exhaustion. Sai, what am I going to do now? Aizawa said, picking up the passed out Izuku. Everyone minus Endeavor was smiling and happy that Aizawa saved him. Time skip 10 years, so Mido is 15. Why a big time skip? Momo asked. Maybe because someone is too lazy, Shadow said, glaring at the fourth wall. Who? Denki asked Shadow. Don't worry about it, Kami, Shadow said to Denki, smiling. Are you excited to go to the USJ Dedukuen? Izuku asked Shoto, who is sitting next to him on the bus. Deku just shrugged and said, I guess. Izuku rolled his eyes and sighed. Shoto, you know you should smile more. Why? Deku asked Izuku curiously. Because you look cuter when you do, Izuku said with a smile and a shrug. Deku blushed and nodded. Deku blushed and nodded at the screen. Everyone saw this and smiled at how cute the relationship between the two boys was, everyone except a fuming Endeavor. Say anything bad about this ship and I will destroy you, Shadow said, looking at Endeavor. He grunted and slumped in his seat. Time skip 30 minutes later. Instead of a banged-up Shota Aizawa, we see a very hurt Izuku Aizawa, BLD everywhere all over his clothes and floor from fighting the Nomu. Eraserhead was holding a passed-out Izuku in his arms, trying to fight off the villains while looking after his son. The students couldn't help in time to stop Izuku from getting hurt as they all froze from fright. Everyone, even Endeavor in the theater, went pale except some of the villains. Some started to cry more or just start crying. Shoto was silently crying, worrying about his appealing boyfriend being beat up like that. He just couldn't wait until he came back and give him the biggest hug known to man/woman/non-binary people. Beaming face with smiling eyes, beaming face with smiling eyes. Time skipped to the hospital. As you can see, I was in the hospital for some time, the older Izuku narrated as they see the 15-year-old Izuku in a hospital bed with wires and cords and a mask on his face, casts on his arms and legs. But after about a month or two, I don't remember how long I was in there, anyway after a couple of months I woke up, went home with my dad and back to school to become the #1 hero. It shows Izuku waking up in the bed to watching TV with Mr. Aizawa to talking with Shoto at school while eating lunch. When I was 17 I got together with the love of my life. Shoto Todoroki. It shows Shoto confessing his feelings under a cherry tree. And about 4 years later we got married. It shows both boys in white suits, Deku holding a bundle of flowers about to kiss Izuku. And now we're here. It shows the older Izuku sitting on the edge of the building. I'm secretly the #1 hero, but no one knows because I'm an underground hero. Shoto is #2 and Kaken is #3. My life started off as SHT, but it got better. Izuku stood up from sitting down, looked at the camera/screen and said, Life may start off like CRP, but it can get better if you don't let people control you. Remember that Shoto Todoroki. He smiles and then it shows a picture of all the future heroes with Izuku and Shoto holding hands, smiling in the middle. It then changed back to him on the roof turning around. Oh yeah, did I mention I'm quirkless? He smiled and the screen turned off. Everyone was smiling so much their faces started to hurt. But they were also very shocked to hear that he was the #1 hero while quirkless. What did he mean when he said that, Todoroki? Mr. Aizawa asked, looking at the Todoroki sibling. They all flinched. I don't know, Shoto said in his monotone voice, trying not to panic. His brothers showed anger and sadness on their faces and his sister only showed sadness. Okay, well that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, Shadow said while walking up to the stage. Before I bring back the rest, is there any questions? Shadow asked everyone. Yes, why was Midoriya-kun on the streets in the first place? Momo asked with her hand raised. Let's just say in this world his father is not a nice/good person. When they found out he was quirkless, he threw him out on the streets, and Inko had died after Mito was born, so she couldn't do anything as she was dead, Shadow explained with a frown. Deku's dad isn't like that here, is he? Uraraka asked, looking at Bakugo for an answer. I don't know, round face, I never met the guy. They always say he is overseas working or some SHD. Bakugo explained grumpily. Shadow, do you know? She asked again, looking at Shadow. I am unable to say, Shadow somewhat answered the question. Anyway, can I bring them back or is there more questions? Shadow asked again. No one said anything, and so Shadow snapped her fingers and a portal opened up and closed and the four were back standing on the stage. Are you all okay? You're crying, Mito said, worried and freaking out a bit. Shoto ran up to the stage and hugged Mito very tight, then kissed him patiently on the lips. Once finished, Mito spoke up. Show, what happened? Are you okay? Shoto smiled and hugged him again. I'm okay now, he said as Mito hugged him back. When that was over, they all went back to their seats and waited for Shadow to speak up, but 𝐬𝐮 beat her to it. "Midoriya-kun, what is your father like?" 𝐬𝐮 asked her fellow green-headed friend. Midoriya and 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 flinched so much you could have sworn they were having a seizure. "I don't know, he works over 𝐶𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 and I don't see him much," Midoriya answered / stuttered out. Most if not all were worried and curious about who his father is, but 2 to 3 people know who it was, they just won't say anything until the time is right. Anyway, how about we go on to the next one?" Shadow stuttered out, looking at the crowd of people. Everyone nodded and looked at the screen again. Midoriya is sitting in Shoto's lap getting hugged from behind. Koda and Eri are sitting next to them on one seat because why not, and 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 is sitting next to All Might and Aizawa. "Okay, let's go," Snap Shadow said as the screen turned on. Multiverse loading. Multiverse found. Shrip. Heaven. Now. "Oh, this is such a good one," Shadow said while smiling widely. "It sounds funny," Mina said, chuckling a bit. "Oh, it is, my friend, it is indeed," Shadow replied. Before anyone could ask any questions, she ran up to the stage and said, "Okay, so I need 3 more people to join us." Snap! Suddenly the big 3 were standing in the middle of the stage. "Huh, where are we?" Mirio said, very confused. "Okay, let's explain." "Again," Shadow said with a bored and excited tone. After another explanation, "Oh, that sounds so cool," Mirio and Nijire said, smiling widely. Tamaki was smiling but not as wide as the other 2. They went to find some seats and the screen started. It showed a tired-looking Aizawa in a cashier uniform. "I am a cashier at a farmer's market. I'm Michigan," someone said with a weird tone. "I don't know what to call the tone, sorry. We sell a huge variety of stuff, including fresh shrimp," someone said as it showed him standing behind a counter or a desk looking bored. "Today a toddler walked up to our shrimp cooler and huh," everyone said. Shadow said, chuckling. "Just watch," she said again. It showed Deku, Tamaki and Todoroki looking at a book. Deku about to die of laughter, Tamaki read from laughing, and Todo looks confused. "Oh hey, it's you, Tamaki," Miro said to his friend. Tamaki just nodded and smiled at his friend. Deku gave the book to Tamaki and walks off, falls to the floor laughing his butt off, banging the floor with his hand. Now everyone was confused. Some chuckled because of Midoriya's reaction to what they had no clue about. Tamaki walked over to Deku, leaving a Todoroki that looks like he is praying to God or rethinking his life decisions. "Read it, read it, read it, read it," Tamaki said to the dying Deku on the floor. Deku kept laughing until he grabbed the book and continued to read it out loud. We sell a huge variety of stuff including fresh shrimp. Today a toddler," he said, starting to laugh again. "Today a toddler walks up to our shrimp cooler and started chanting," he said again, taking a breath. Everyone was on the edge of their seats except a couple of people, Endeavor and Shadow, who was already chuckling a lot. "Shrimp. Heaven. Now," Deku said / yelled while chuckling. Emphasis on the now. Everyone was laughing except Endeavor, he just chuckled a bit. The ones who were laughing the most were Shadow and Denki. Eventually leading to his mother to say, "Please Denki, we can't keep doing this." It showed 𝐶𝐮𝐴 saying this to Denki and a confused Aizawa in the background. It then switched to the 3 boys all looking red from laughing so much. Tamaki was dying on the floor while holding Shoto's shoulder to get up but failing. Deku just put his face in the book, all Facebook laughing just as hard, and Shoto laughing while clapping his hands. Become a data scientist now in Pune? No tech background needed. Sponsored by Inomatics Research Labs. Rocket Inomatics Research Labs, India's biggest edtech, is now in Pune. Looking for a high-paying career in data science and AI? Join India's best and biggest data science edtech and transform your future. White Heavy Checkmark 100% placement assistance. White Heavy Checkmark hands-on training with live projects. White Heavy Checkmark expert mentorship and career. Sign up then. ISW to Aizawa again, thinking, what is shrimp heaven? Why does Denki need it now? What are my responsibilities in this situation, if any? But I fear that something may be under the surface. Then just shrimp Jesus will return. As Deku finished reading, all 3 of the boys were laughing their butts off, and then Mr. Aizawa appeared behind them and took the book back from the laughing boys. He went through the pages of his diary and started to laugh with them, just not as hard as the 3 boys on the floor. Oh, so it was my diary or journal as I call it, Aizawa said with a monotone voice, still lightly chuckling, looking at the dying shadow on the ground. She just nodded while trying to calm down a bit. Everyone minus Endeavor was psing themselves laughing, mostly Shadow and Denki, though Shadow got up from the floor and said, "Well, what did you think?" she asked, still laughing. The words, "It was hilarious, so funny and amazing," could be heard. Shadow and 𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐸 helped the dying Denki up from the floor back onto his seat next to 𝐮𝐿. They all sat back in their seats and Shadow walked back up to the stage. "Okay, so we haven't taken a break in a while, so why don't you go to the bathroom and have something to eat now?" After she said that, almost everyone got up and went to the rooms to either eat or pee. 𝐻𝐿𝐮 walked up to the chuckling Shadow and tapped her legs since she was taller than him. "Oh, Principal 𝐻𝐿𝐮, how can I help you?" she said while getting on her knees. "Well, I have a question for you, if that's all right," 𝐻𝐿𝐮 said, looking at Shadow. "Sure, go ahead," she replied. "What is your relation to Mr. 𝐮𝐿𝐻 and Mr. Kaminari?" he asked curiously. Shadow froze in shock and didn't know what to say to that. As said, "They are my favorite C characters," she stuttered out nervously, hoping no one finds out the truth. "I see, although I think I may be more than just favoritism." 𝐻𝐿𝐮 started looking up and the nervous Shadow. "Damn it, 𝐻𝐿𝐮, why do you have to be so smart?" Shadow thought to herself. "I don't know what to tell you, Principal 𝐻𝐿𝐮," she stuttered out again. "I don't mean to push or anything, but I think you do know," 𝐻𝐿𝐮 stated again, looking up. "You said you are close friends with Ms. Kaisa and Ms. Emma from the future world, so it got me thinking, are from where they are," 𝐻𝐿𝐮 said with a smirk. Shadow was speechless and in shock. It's how she thought. Shadow and 𝐻𝐿𝐮 heard the doors open from behind them, and 𝐻𝐿𝐮 turned around to head back to his seat. "Oh, and, Wolf, you might want to dye your hair again, as I can see some purple roots from your brown hair," 𝐻𝐿𝐮 stated, returning to his seat. Shadow gasped and touched the top of her head. She was still crouching when everyone was in their seats again. Denki and 𝐮𝐿𝐻 saw that she had a look of shock of her face and ran up to her. "Hey, are you okay?" they both asked at the same time. "Why, I'm okay," she said, looking up at the two, smiling a bit. They smiled back and made sure she got off the ground. She told them to go back to their seats and she would be there in a minute. When they were back at their seats, she faced the crowd and said, "Okay, let's go to the next world," she said, trying not to stutter. She snapped her fingers and the screen turned on. She was walking off the stage when she looked at 𝐻𝐿𝐮, who had a smile on his face like nothing happened. She walked up and sat between Cammy and 𝐮𝐿𝐻 again, and the screen started. Multiverse loading. Future characters, looks and quirks. What if they see me there? Anino? Shadow thought while panicking. "Oh, this will be helpful," Shadow said, looking at the screen, trying not to panic so much. 𝐻𝐿𝐮 looked at her, smirking, knowing she is probably panicking inside. Most people were confused, so Shadow stood up and walked to the stage in front of the screen. This means that we get a description of the people in the future W world, so you can know who they are and who their parents are and what their quirks are, Shadow said, trying so hard not to stutter. "Oh, cool, that mean we get to find out what ships had kids," Mina said excitedly. Shadow just nodded and had a small smile. "Okay, wanna get started?" she asked everyone. Most people were excited to see if they have kids or not. The screen comes on and shows the first child. Name: Kaisa Todoroki. Midoriya. Quirk: Fire, Ice, Telekinesis, and parents: number 1 Pro Hero Deku and number 2 Pro Hero Shoto. Parents' real names: Izuku Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki. Likes: Katsudan, Emma, and 𝐶𝐿𝐲. Dislikes: bullying, villains, and retired pro hero. And ever hobbies: gaming with 𝐶𝐿𝐲, playing her phone, and hanging out with friends. Gamer name: Queen Icy. Hot age: 16. Looks: with the red on the fire side and the white on her ice side, she doesn't have the animal ears. Quirk explanation: fire and ice are just like her father/papa's. If she uses them too much, she can get burnt or get frostbite. Telekinesis: like Izuku Midoriya's mom's quirk, she can lift things with her mind, but unlike 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Midoriya, she can lift stuff that are as heavy as her own body weight. If she goes over her limit, she will get a huge headache. Did everyone get that? Shadow asked the crowd. Most nodded and most were shocked that she had 3 or 4 quirks. How does she have 3 quirks? Mina asked, shocked. Who cares, she's hot, Mineta said, getting a lightning bolt to the head just enough to knock him out by Shadow with a sad look on her face. Anyway, to answer your question, Mina. We don't really know. I was impressed as well at first, Shadow explained, looking at the pink-skinned girl. Her gamer name is 𝐿𝐮𝐬𝐴, said, looking at Todoroki, who was sitting in front of him. Hehe, Shoto says with a smile. Anyway, let's continue, Shadow said, clearly still angry at what Mineta said. Name, 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐾𝐲. Quirk, Heart Explosion. Parents, number 3 Pro Hero Ground Zero and number 4 Pro Hero Red Riot. Parents' real names, Katsuki 𝐵𝐵𝐾𝐲 and Idro Kirishima. Likes, fighting, 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐴 and 𝗧𝗟𝗨. Dislikes, villains, retired pro hero and ever. Hobbies, gaming and fighting. Gaming name, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Kill age, 16. Looks, hands are hardened. I just can't show it in gacha life. Quirk explanation, she can make explosions when she hardens her arms. Too many explosions and her arms will start to crack. That is some weakness, Nizu says, taking a sip of his tea. Yeah, I'll say, says Kirishima. Hey 𝐵𝐾𝐲, look at her gamer name, Denki said while smiling or smirking. Haha, cool, 𝐵𝐾𝐲 said, looking at the screen. Name, 𝗧𝗟𝗨. As soon as Shadow saw that, she started to panic. Thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no, what if they find out my real name isn't Shadow Wolf? No. Nizu saw she was panicking and he smiled and thought, so the truth comes out. The screen continued. Name, 𝗧𝗟𝗨. Quirks, mind control, electricity manipulation and NECACAT. Parents, number 5 Pro Hero, Charge Bolt, and number 6 Pro Hero, Mega Mind. Parents' real name, Denki Kaminari and Hitoshi Shinso. Likes, gaming, sleeping, Hero and her friends. Dislikes, bullies, being judged and retired pro hero and ever. Hobbies, is a famous gamer, hanging with friends and Hero. Age, 16. Looks. Oh no, Shadow accidentally said out loud so everyone could hear. Everyone looked at her with a questioning look. I ignore Emmy, Shadow said, waving her hands around. Everyone looked at the screen again, curious as to why she said that. Looks, Quirk explanation. Same as her parents, she can control people when they answer a question and manipulate electricity to do what she wants. That even means copy someone's DNA when she touches them, and she temporarily gets their quirk. Nico enhances her physical strength and skill. She can run fast, climb up some walls with her claws that can come out of her fingers at will. Gamer name. Here we go, both Shadow and Nizu thought gamer name Shadow Wolf. As soon as everyone saw the name, everyone was looking at Shadow. Mind explaining, Ms. Shinso, Nizu said, looking at her. Shadow looked down in shame for hiding it. She stood up and walked to the stage and explained. She started putting her head up. She looked over to Denki and Hitoshi and frowned. My name is 𝗧𝗟𝗨 and my parents are Denki Kaminari and Hitoshi Shinso. My dad is Denki and my papa is Hitoshi. I hid my identity because I didn't want to get judged again and because I didn't want you guys to be scared or frightened that I would use my quirk on you or... She was stopped by 4 arms around her. Hitoshi and Denki were hugging her tight. She was speechless. Everyone looked at the family and smiled at the moment they are witnessing right before them. Why don't hate me? 𝗧𝗟𝗨 said while crying confusedly. No, we would never hate you for hiding, Denki said, still hugging his daughter. We are just confused as to why you hid it for this long, Hitoshi said, letting go with Denki putting a hand on her shoulder. I hid it because I didn't want anyone to judge or bully me for who my parents are. Everyone looked confused at what she said. 𝗧𝗟𝗨 took a deep breath and said, people always call me dumb or stupid or sleep-deprived freak, and most if not all judge me for my quirks. They beat me up and I tried to defend myself, but last time I did I almost killed everyone because I shocked them with my electricity. When they got out of the hospital they took me to the corner of my school and beat me up again, aiming for my ears and my tail. She explained, taking off her jumper revealing a cat tail. I dyed my hair to try and stop the bullying. It worked for a bit but then they continued to hurt me, she said, looking down. Denki and Hitoshi looked like they could kill someone right there and now. Until I got into UA I met 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐴 and Emma, they helped me with everything. I got in with recommendations from you too. When I got into UA I was really happy and met some great people and made some amazing friends including 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐴, Emma and Haro, she continued, looking back up with a smile. She sighed and then remembered something. Wait here, I'll be back, she said, running into a room while smiling. Everyone was angry about the bullying but curious on where she went. After a bit of time they heard a door open and what they saw brightened everyone's day. Out came the same girl but with purple hair and one purple eye and one yellow eye, both with cat-like pupils. Ears were up and her tail waving behind her. Denki and 𝐮𝐭𝐴 looked at the girl before them and thought the same thing, appealing. I am going to protect her from everyone. She smiled at her parents and gave them a huge hug. They obviously hugged back. When they let go, Denki asked a question, wiping the smile off of her face. What happened to us? 𝐶𝐿𝐲 knew what that meant and answered truthfully. I never told you guys. Denki and Hitoshi had a face full of shock. Everyone had the same face. Why didn't you tell us? Hitoshi asked the teen in front of them. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to worry you about it, she said, smiling a bit. Denki started to cry and ran to hug his daughter. They both cried together. Hitoshi stood there shocked at what he is hearing. He shook his head and walked over to his family. You can always tell us anything, Hitoshi said, hugging the pair. They smiled and 𝐶𝐿𝐲 started to laugh. Most were confused. Ha wow, look at us crying already, ha wow, she said, laughing. Soon enough everyone joined in laughing. Denki and Hitoshi let go of their daughter and smiled. Can we continue? There are still more people to meet, 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said, smiling at everyone. They all nodded and the three went back to their seats, 𝐶𝐿𝐲 sitting in between her parents, smiling. Name, Haro Todoroki. Quirk, Hot Wings. Parents, Pro Hero, Hawks, and ex-villain, Dabi. Parents' real names. Tuya Todoroki and Kigo Takami likes flying, being silly, and 𝐶𝐿𝐲 dislikes villains, retired pro hero and ever, and glue. Ptah. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 laughed when she saw that it said glue. Everyone looked at her a bit confused. What? She asked everyone. You try getting glue stuck in your wings before training. Let me tell you, it's a beach to get out of his feathers. I know this because it has happened before and he couldn't fly for a week, she explained while cracking up laughing. Everyone laughed except a couple of people. Hobbies: flying and hanging out with 𝐶𝐿𝐲. Age: 17. Looks: on left is normal and on the right is when his quirk is activated. Quirk explanation: just like his Papa Hawks, he has big red wings, but they can go on fire that is as hot as his dad's Tuya, that it gives off a blue-like color. His wings, when fire activated, can cut and burn anything. There are no setbacks to his quirk. So that's our son, Tuya said, looking at the screen. Yep, and my boyfriend, 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said while blushing. What? Yelled Hitoshi, Denki, Tuya, and Hawks. Did I forget to mention that before? 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said, scratching the back on her neck with a closed-eye smile. Yes, Denki and Hitoshi said. Oh, here comes protective dad's mode, Mina teased the two dads. We are not that protective, said both boys. Well, past, present, and future you actually are, 𝐶𝐿𝐲 giggled. Both boys just crossed their arms and continued to watch the screen, as did everyone else. Name: Oliver and Olivia Ida. Parents: Ingenium and Parents' real names: Tenya Ida and May. Hasm Quirk Oliver, Super Psych Quirk Olivia. Quirkless likes Oliver. Shopping, wearing skirts and hanging with friends likes Olivia. Shopping, wearing skirts and hanging with friends dislikes Oliver. Boy clothes, villains and retired pro hero and ever dislikes Olivia. Bullies, villains and retired pro hero and ever hobbies Oliver. Shopping with sister and hanging out with friends hobbies Olivia. Shopping with brother, hanging with friends and building gadgets ages 16. Looks: quirk explanation. Oliver, like his mum, he can see things in a large distance. Aw, they're so cute, Mina squealed. I know, right? Oliver is an amazing friend and Olivia is great at making new gadgets to get us out of sticky situations, 𝐶𝐿𝐲 chuckled while looking at the screen. Both May and Tenya were blushing like mad men. You okay, Uncle Tenya? 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said, looking at the blushing boy. Why, yes, I'm completely fine, Tenya stuttered out. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 just laughed and looked back at the screen. Okay, I think this is the last one. Name: 𝐶𝐿𝐲. Quirk: floating tongue. Parents: Uravity and Froppy. Parents' real names: Ako Uraraka and 𝐶𝐿𝐲. Likes swimming, writing, friends and family. Dislikes the cold, sand, villains and retired pro hero and ever hobbies: swimming, reading books and hanging out with 𝐶𝐿𝐲. Age: 7. Looks: quirk explanation. Like her mum Achiko, she can make things float when her frog-like tongue touches things. Aw, she is adorable, Achiko said, looking at her daughter on the screen. She really is. I love to babysit her when you guys are on patrol at night, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 said smiling. They all smiled knowing the future is in good hands. Well, that was it for the future kids. There are more, but it would take too long to show all of them. I hope you understand, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 said, walking back up to the stage. Any questions? She asked everyone. Ida put his hand up. Yes, Uncle Tenya. How did everyone else have kids if they are the same gender as each other? He asked, confused. Something happened before we were born. There was an attack on the city and some of our parents and other pros went to fight the threat. It turned out that the villain had a gender-swapping quirk and the people that were fighting the villain got hit with it and bing bam boom here we are, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 explained. He nodded and some did as well. Why do all of the kids hate me? And Ever asked. You don't want to know, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 said with a dark tone and a serious look. So are we ready for the next world? She asked smiling. Everyone nodded and looked back at the screen. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 snapped her fingers and the screen turned back on and continued to the next world. Multiverse loading. Multiverse loading. Multiverse found. Multiverse failing. Multiverse failing. Rebooting. Rebooting. Rebooting failed. Shutting down. Shutting down. Well, that's weird, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 said, walking up to the stage. What happened? Asked All Might. I don't know. I'm gonna have to call a friend to help fix it. If I can get them here, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 asked, confusing everyone. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 grabbed her pocket out of her pocket and started scrolling through. Miss 𝗀𝐿, what are you doing? Nizu asked, very curious. Shoo. She then started to ring someone. Ring ring ring. Hello. A high-pitched female voice said through the phone. Everyone looked at the girl on the stage with a curious eye until she said something. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 looked at the crowd and then Ida especially. Hey Olivia, how are ya? She said to the girl on the phone. Ida and May showed a look of shock on their faces. I'm gonna say this is before the future chapter, but they know everything still. Sorry if this is confusing. Nothing much, just building, Olivia answered. Hey, are you in class right now? 𝐀𝐮𝐿 asked. What? No, it's Saturday. We don't have class on Saturday, Olivia laughed. Oh right, sorry, I forgot what day it was. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 laughed with her. Hey Olivia, I have a problem. Can you do me a favor? 𝐀𝐮𝐿 asked the blue-haired girl. Yeah, what's up? Something need fixing? Olivia asked. Yes, something. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 said, looking at the screen. If I get someone to make a portal from you to me, can you grab your tools and go through and we will be from there, 𝐀𝐮𝐿 explained. Yeah, sure. Do you want me to bring anyone with me? Olivia asked. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 looked at some of the couples and thought hard to herself. Hey, what day did you say it was again? 𝐀𝐮𝐿 asked. Saturday, Olivia answered. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 thought again. Yeah, bring 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐿, she said, looking at Mido and To-Do. Emma, she said, looking at Kiri and Bakugo. And bring Harrow, she said with a giggle, looking at Hawks and Tuya. Will do. See you soon, Olivia answered. Thanks, 𝐂𝐿 said and hung up. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 looked at all the confused and smiling faces. What? She asked the crowd. Asked the future kids to come. Here, All Might said in disbelief. Well, yeah, I figured you wouldn't mind, and I need someone to fix the screen, which is Olivia because she is the best at building and fixing everything, and I figured I would bring my other friends because I thought you would like to meet them, she blurted out in one breath, but everyone could still understand. After she said this, everyone smiled and then a portal opened and people fell out screaming. Ow, can you get off me? 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐿, stop yelling. They suddenly see a boy stand up and rub his head. If I knew it was going to be a bumpy landing, I would have just flew, he said. Sorry babe, 𝐀𝐮𝐿 said with a closed eyes smile. He looked up and smiled bright. 𝐀𝐮𝐿, babe, kitty, he screamed/yelled, running over and knocking over both of them in a hug. They both just started laughing, until the people behind them joined in on the hug, crushing 𝐀𝐮𝐿. Ugh guys, you're crushing me, 𝐀𝐮𝐿 said, laughing. After they all got off her, she smiled and then faced Olivia, who has also brought her brother Oliver. Okay, so Olivia, thank you for bringing your tools. I kinda need you to fix the big butt screen beside us, she said with a worried tone. Welp, no time like the present, let's get started, Olivia said, waving her tools around. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 smiled and nodded, showing her where to fix it. Just roll with it, anyway. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 said in a serious tone, looking at the three before her, and Oliver went with Olivia to try and fix it. 𝐀𝐮𝐿 then smiled widely and put her arms out for a hug. They got the drift and all ran to hug her. Everyone watching the four kids hug smiled wide and chuckled a bit minus 𝐿𝐷𝐸𝐴 who was more interested in their quirks. "Oh yeah guys, I want you to see some people," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said, confusing the three friends. She then put her arm out pointing to the crowd and the three friends gasped with mouths wide open. "Meet your younger parents," she said with a chuckle. "No, thing," the three said staring. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 was the first to stop staring at her parents and looked at 𝐶𝐿𝐲. "Are you sure they're our parents?" 𝐾𝐮𝐬 said walking closer to 𝐶𝐿𝐲. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 just smiled and grabbed her hand and ran off the stage while the other two are still staring in shock and awe. "Whoa, slow down 𝐶𝐿𝐲," 𝐾𝐮𝐬 said trying to slow her down. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 succeeded by freezing 𝐶𝐿𝐲's feet to the ground. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 just stood there arms crossed. "Ah really?" 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said while rubbing her arms cold. "Yep," was all 𝐾𝐮𝐬 said. 𝐒𝐿𝐲, can you unfreeze me please?" 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said facing the monotone boy. "Sure." 𝐒𝐿𝐲 stood up, walked over to 𝐶𝐿𝐲, bent down and started to melt the ice. "Well dang, I guess you are my parents," 𝐾𝐮𝐬 said in amazement. "Wait, what?" They finally hear from the two at the stage and then a bang. They passed out. "Oh God, really?" 𝐾𝐮𝐬 and 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said. Sarcastically. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 looked back at 𝐾𝐮𝐬 and looked confused. "You're taking this surprisingly good, why?" she asked the three-colored hair girl. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 just smiled, one of those smiles that could melt anyone's hearts. "Well, I honestly don't mind. I figured that when Olivia came and got us all that we were going somewhere new and exciting. Well, that's 𝐾𝐮𝐬 for ya, always looking for excitement and fun," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said with a smile just like 𝐾𝐮𝐬's. "Too bright," everyone else thought. "Should we go check on them?" 𝐾𝐮𝐬 asked, pointing to the two on the ground. "Yeah, that would be smart," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said, starting to walk over to the stage. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 sighed and started to walk as well. When they got to the stage, they had no clue on how to wake them up. "Oh, shock them," 𝐾𝐮𝐬 suggested / yelled at 𝐶𝐿𝐲. "Okay, but you might want to get off the stage," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said with a wink. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 nodded and started to laugh, running of the stage. Everyone was confused at this point. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 stood up from crouching and stood in front of the two on the ground. "It's about to be shocking," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said with a smirk. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 raised her hand and electricity started to form. She touched her friends' feet and shocked them just enough so they would wake up. They both shot up and yelled, 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐲. Both 𝐶𝐿𝐲 and 𝐾𝐮𝐬 fell on the floor laughing their butts off. "Run," both 𝐻𝐵 and Emma said with a dark tone. As soon as they heard that, they both shut up and started to run to their parents. "Dad, Papa, help," they both said. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 hugged the life out of her parents and 𝐶𝐿𝐲 did the same. Both 𝐵 and Emma started running towards the two hugging their parents. Kirishima and Hawks both ran in front of their kids and grabbed them before they hit the other two. "Dad, let me go," said both two that are in their dad's grip. "Hey, I know, how about we all go back to your UA and eat for a bit and then come back here?" 𝐶𝐿𝐲 yelled out, standing on her chair, grabbing everyone's attention. They all nodded perfectly in sync. "Because I'm lazy and sick, I'm going to time skip again to when they are back to the theater." At the cafeteria, almost everyone asked questions, but they never answered them. People thought that they couldn't tell because it could break the future, and some just didn't question it. Back at the theater, the four future kids stood or sat down on the stage. 𝐶𝐿𝐲 was standing facing everyone and waiting for them to get back in their seats. "Are we all here?" she asked. Everyone nodded, so she continued. "Okay, so we know most of you have questions for us, so we are happy to answer them now," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said with a smile, same as her friends on the stage. 𝐵 was standing next to her and the other two were sitting on the floor of the stage, still looking at their parents. 𝐵 then remembered something and whispered something in 𝐶𝐿𝐲's ear. "Is my papa still a villain here?" he whispered to his girlfriend. "Yes, he is. Sorry I didn't tell you. Are you mad?" she whispered back with a frown. No, I'm not mad, I'm just curious, that's all," he said back. They both looked back at the crowd and said, "Okay, so this is the way it's going to go. We are going to introduce ourselves and tell you a bit about us, and after that you are going to ask your questions by putting your hand up, saying the name of the person you want to ask, and then ask the question. Is that clear?" 𝐶𝐿𝐲 explained to everyone. Everyone either nodded their head or said yes. "Good, okay, so I will go first," 𝐶𝐿𝐲 said. 𝐵 gave her a kiss on the cheek and went to sit down with the other. "Okay, so my name is 𝐒𝐿𝐲 𝗫𝐵. My parents are Denki Kaminari and Hitoshi 𝗫𝐵. I love my boyfriend, friends, family, cats and sleep. Oh, and playing games. My favorite food is pizza and I hate Endeavor War, she said smiling. She then went to sit down next to Haro. Haro stood up and went next. Sup, my name is Haro Todoroki. My parents are Kigo Takami and Tuya Todoroki. I love my girlfriend, friends, family, flying and chicken. My favorite food is chicken wings and I hate Endeavor, he said, then went to sit down behind 𝐶𝐿𝐿 and hug her from behind. Hitoshi and Denki saw this and glared but smiled nicely. 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐵 then stood up and went. Hey, my name's 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐵 Todoroki midoriya. My parents are 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵 midoriya and 𝐶𝐿𝐱 Todoroki. Cough, the best parents cough. 𝐶𝐿𝐿 heard this and yelled, Nope, you're wrong, my parents are the best, and 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐵 said back, You know they're not, mine are clearly better. Haro and Emma knew where this was going, so they stood up and backed away slowly. 𝐶𝐿𝐿 stood up and stood next to 𝐾𝐻𝐻. Am I hearing this right? Just because your parents are number 1 and 2 hero does not make them better, 𝐶𝐿𝐿 explained back at the getting angry 𝐾𝐻𝐻. Emma and Haro ran in between them to stop where this was going. How about 𝐾𝐻𝐻 just continues to explain and 𝐶𝐿𝐿 can have a cat nap on Haro's lap? How about that? Emma said, hoping they would calm down. Fine, they both said. Everyone's sweet dropped looking at the scene in front of them. The 4 parents were smiling knowing that their kids loved them that much. Anyway, my favorite food is katsudon and I hate Endeavor War, she finished with a smile. Then Emma stood up and took her place at the front. Sup, my name's Emma 𝐒𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵 and my parents are Katsuki 𝐒𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵 and Eijiro Kirishima. My favorite food at steak and I hate Endeavor, Emma explained looking at the crowd. She then went back to sitting down. Everyone then heard a boom sound coming from behind a door next to the screen. The door opened, followed by black smoke coming out and people coughing. It was Olivia and Oliver. So it may take longer than I planned to fix it. It's pretty broken, Olivia said looking at the 3 awake and the sleeping 𝐶𝐿𝐿. Whatever happened? Jammed something and I'm still trying to locate what's jammed and broken, so it may take some time, she explained, again covered in black dust. So what's going on out here? Olivia said looking at the sleeping 𝐶𝐿𝐿. Questions, 𝐾𝐻𝐻 said. What she means is that these guys will be asking us questions that could be about us or anything about our lives, Emma explained. You just got to introduce yourselves to everyone, Haro finished. Okay, Olivia said looking at her brother. Do you want me to explain? Olivia asked Oliver. He nodded and went to sit down with Emma and 𝐾𝐻𝐻. Olivia then looked back at the crowd and smiled, still covered in dust. Okay, so our names and Oliver and Olivia, our parents and Tenya Ida and Mei Hasumi, our favorite food at sushi and we hate Endeavor. I think that was his name anyway, she said / explained with a closed eye smile. Endeavor was shaken that 6 of the future kids hated him so much. If you don't mind me asking, why do you all hate Endeavor so much? Principal Nizu asked. 𝐶𝐿𝐿 woke up as soon as he asked that, stood up with an angry face along with 𝐾𝐻𝐻 next to her. Because he is an abusive dirtbag who deserves to be in jail or dead for what he's done, they both yell. Everyone minus the Todoroki family and Midoriya had a shocked look on their faces. What do you mean? Principal Nizu asked again. Well, for starters they started to yell before hands covered their mouths. It was Haro and Emma covering the 2's mouths. Calm down you 2 please, Haro said hugging 𝐶𝐿𝐿 from behind. They don't need to know right now, Emma said pulling 𝐾𝐻𝐻 into a hug. Olivia and Oliver just sat on the ground with a sad look on their faces. After a minute the 2 that were yelling fell asleep in their lovers' arms. Haro bridal carried 𝐶𝐿𝐿 and brought her to Denki and Hitoshi. And put her on their lap sideways, so her head was on Hitoshi's lap and her legs were on Denki's lap and her feet were on Mina's lap, who was sitting next to Denki now. Is it okay if I put her here? Haro asked Denki, Hitoshi and Mina. They all said it was okay and let her calm down and sleep there with Haro going back to the stage. Emma did the same with 𝐾𝐻𝐻, but her head was on Shoto's lap and legs on Midoriya's and feet on Ida's lap. She asked the same question and the 3 gave the same answer. Emma then proceeded to walk back up to the stage with Haro. Okay, so I'm not too good at this talking thing, but until they wake up feel free to ask us 4 questions if you would like, Emma said loud enough so that everyone could hear her. They all nodded and some started to put their hands up. Let's get started. The 2 that were asleep are now awake and standing in the stage wide awake with bright smiles with their partners standing next to them. Oliver and Olivia went back to trying to fix the screen. Okay, so question time. Who's first? 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 asked the crowd. Monoma put his hand up. Yes, Uncle Monoma, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said pointing to him. This is to 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐽𝐽. How did you put Bakugo's kid in the hospital for 2 weeks without using your quirks? He asked in a calm manner. 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽 smiled at the name he used and answered. Strategy and training, she answered while smiling. Emma shivered remembering what happened. Yeah, we are never versing each other again, Emma said with a worried but small smile on her face. That's fine by me, I'll just verse 𝐶𝐻, 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽 said with a closed eyes smile. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 smiled and said, Hell yeah you will. Someone else put their hand up. Yes, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said pointing to the person. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐽𝐽, 3 quirks or 4 they asked. 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽 giggled at the name they were using, then she had a shocked look on her face as did everyone else on the stage. Before she could answer the door swung open and out stepped Oliver and Olivia. We fixed the screen, Olivia yelled out with a smile. Finally, what was wrong with it? 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 yelled back excitedly. You must have broke something in it, but I'm still missing a piece for it to not break again, but it's back at school so we might need to go back for a minute. Or 2 inch, Olivia said nervously. So we need to go back home so you can find the final piece. Harrow asked the blue-haired girl. Why? Yes, sorry, Olivia said looking down. Some looked shocked but some understood. All of us? 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 asked in a shaky voice. Well, yeah, not all of us, Oliver said pointing to the shocked and confused crowd. But yeah, us 6, Olivia finished. I don't know, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said shaking. She started to walk off the stage towards Denki and Hitoshi with her arms crossed. Come on 𝐶𝐻, please, it will just be for a bit, Harrow said hoping she would come with them. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 stopped in her tracks and looked back up to the stage. Fine, but only for a bit and as an added bonus. She stopped while walking back up to the stage and looking at everyone with a nervous smile. You guys can watch us on the screen if you would like, she finished, and the crowd all screamed. Yeah, that would be awesome, everyone minus a couple of people screamed at the kids. 𝐶𝐻𝐬𝐽's cat ears went down from the loud screaming and the nerves. If we get attacked again, I'm suing, 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 mumbled only to heard by everyone. Okay, let's go. As soon as 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 said that, a portal opened up and they started to walk in one by one. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 and 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽 were the last ones to go, but before they went in, 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽 faced 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽, raised her, had to be grabbed and said, Together. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 looked at her, then her parents. Denki and Hitoshi nodded. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐽 looked back and grabbed 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽's hand and said, Together. Then they walked in. The screen then turned on and said, This may take a few minutes, feel free to talk for a bit. Well, what do you think about this so far, everybody? Nizu asked everyone standing on Mr. Aizawa's shoulder. Amazing, crazy, incredible, everyone said. Mina looked at all the couples and then said, Yeah, it's crazy to think that some of you got to meet your future kids, huh? She said while smirking at all the blushing couples. Yeah. Denki stuttered out like his brain was fried. He still couldn't believe Shadow was 𝐶𝐻𝐽𝐽, his future daughter. Todoroki looked at Mito and said to him quietly while everyone else was talk about the kids and the worlds. So what did you think about 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐽? Todoroki and Mito with a smile. She was incredible, she seemed so strong and kind-hearted, Mito said looking in his boyfriend's eyes. I agree, Todoroki said leaning in to kiss his boyfriend. Endeavor is still angry but chose to stay quiet. For now back with Bakugo and Kirishima. So, what did you think of Emma? Kiri asked his boyfriend while looking down. She's strong, I'll give her that. And she looks so much like you, Bakugo answered looking at Kiri while grinning. Yes, she even dyed her hair like mine, the redhead said looking at his lover. They then shared a kiss and continued to look at the screen hand in hand. Back to Ida and Mei. Mei walked over to Ida with a somewhat normal but still shocked face. So we get together, she said trying to lighten the mood. I guess so, Ida said with a smile. He would never admit it, but he has liked Mei for a while, same with Mei, but for Ida. Hey, when this whole thing is done, wanna go out for lunch or dinner one time? Mei asked Ida with a smile. Ida looked at Mei and smiled. I would love to, he answered. Mei smiled back and started to return to her seat. Back with Denki and Hitoshi. Still shocked. Hitoshi asked the IRL Pikachu. Sure am, but. Denki said looking at Hitoshi, I'm happy. Hitoshi couldn't take it anymore and kissed Denki on the lips out of nowhere. Denki was shocked but quickly melted into the kiss. Hitoshi pulled away and looked and Kaminari, "So am I?" They both smiled and looked back at the screen hand in hand. Little did they know all the girls videoed or took photos of the new couple. They all settled down and looked back at the screen. The screen then turned on and they watch. The 6 kids fell through the portal and 5 of them fell on their faces. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 laughed as the others fell. "So glad cats land on their feet," she laughed. "Hey, where have you 6 been?" A male voice came from in front of 𝐀𝐮𝐬. "Matt, my man, how you been?" Emma and 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said to the male. The screen turned around and they saw a tall boy with black straight hair and a straight teeth smile, with yellow and black eyes. "Whoa, he looks like Mina and 𝐶𝐮𝐬," Kiri pointed out. "Yeah, he does," Mina said with her eyes glued to the screen. Hey girls, who's this?" Haro asked, clearly confused. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 looked confused and then realized they have never met. "Oh right, sorry bro, name's Matthew 𝐶𝐮𝐬," he said with a hand out for Haro to shake. Haro shook his hand with glare. "I'm Haro 𝐀𝐮𝐬's boyfriend," he said, smiling a bit. "Whoa, is he jealous?" Mina yelled out. "It seems so," Hawks said, looking over at Tuya. "Oh cool, so this is the boy you talk about," Matt said, looking at the blushing 𝐀𝐮𝐬. "Don't worry about that at the moment. Oliver and Olivia, can you two please go looking for the missing piece?" 𝐀𝐮𝐬 asked the twins. They nodded and started walking to the place they think it is. "Sai, I'm gonna go to my room for a bit, I'll be back soon," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said, walking away. With everyone else, 𝐀𝐮 broke the awkward silence. "So who's hungry?" she said, smiling. "I could eat," Emma said, grabbing 𝐀𝐮's hand, walking to the kitchen. The boys just stood there in an awkward silence. "Yeah, I'm gonna go check on 𝐀𝐮𝐬's," Matt said, waving to Haro. Haro had an angry look of jealousy on his face. With 𝐀𝐮𝐬 was in her room, the walls painted dark purple with yellow lightning bolts painted on. She grabbed her phone out of her pocket and started to call someone. Bring. "I wonder who she is calling," Itsu said. Mina and 𝐶𝐮𝐬 are a blushing mess while looking at the screen in shock. "Hello," a man's voice said over the phone. "Hey, Dad," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said, looking. "Hey Shay, what's going up?" he asked through the phone. "I don't know, I just wanted to hear your voice," she answered while smiling to herself. "Well, that's sweet. You still going to come to dinner in a couple of days?" he asked. "Yeah, of course." She was cut off by a big explosion. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 dropped her phone when the explosion went off because the building shook. They then see an older and taller looking Denki Kaminari with a worried look on his face. "𝐀𝐮𝐬, what was that?" he yelled through the phone. "Dad, get the heroes, we're under attack." 𝐀𝐮𝐬 screamed through the phone only to be cut off by her screaming, and then the phone hung up. "𝐀𝐮𝐬," he yelled, worried for his daughter. Everyone was very worried and on the edge of their seats. But no one was talking. "Babe, call midoriya and DEKUVERSE. A is under attack," he yelled out in the house. Back at the school, it showed all of the future kids fighting and defending each other from the villains. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 was fighting with her friends with blood dripping from her head. Some were in their hero costumes and some in normal clothes. I will do a chapter that shows their costumes. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 was fighting using her ice and telekinesis. Emma was exploding and punching people. Haro was flying around looking if they could escape without getting hurt so bad. "She can't fight any more," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said while sparks fly off of her. 𝐀𝐮 and Emma run over to her, worried. "Hey, you're okay, the pros will be here soon," 𝐀𝐮 said, trying to help her friend. "We are all at our limits, if we go over we will get hurt worse," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said to her friends. "Emma, your arms are cracking, and 𝐀𝐮, you're getting frostbite and you're going to get a headache if you continue to use telekinesis. And one more zap for me and I'm going to go brain dead for a while. I can't do that in the middle of a fight," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said, looking at her worried friends. "And on you get the cat girl and the 3-colored hair girl now," the villain in charge yelled. "Here for you 2-inch," Emma said, angry and worried for her friend and girlfriend. "What do they want with us?" 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said, standing up straight. The parents of the kids, all the students and pro heroes, are very concerned and worried for them and wishing they could help. But still no one said a word. "When are the pros going to be here?" Emma said, dragging her friends inside of the 2A dorms. They are now in the common room trying to figure out a plan. Soon Olivia and Oliver run into the common room, being chased by villain with a knife. "Help," they both yell. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 saw the villain, and as soon as she did, she yelled, "Stop, why are you doing this?" "Because I got to dash." He was cut off by his eyes turning white. He was brainwashed. The other four looked like they saw a ghost. "Why you used it?" 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said in disbelief. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 ignored her and questioned the villain. "Why are you here? What do you want with us?" she questioned, looking at the frozen villain. "We came here to capture and kill 𝐾𝐮𝐴 Todoroki Midoriya and 𝐀𝐮 𝐿, he answered in a deep voice. The five were shocked. Everyone was shocked. Why would they want to kill kids? Mina yelled, almost in tears. Why do you want to kill us?" 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 asked the villain. "So we can take your quirks and give them to our he answered again. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 started to feel dizzy and have a headache. She closed her eyes for a minute, and the next thing she knows is that there was a knife in her stomach. Emma and 𝐾𝐮𝐴 got out of shock and ran to her. Emma punched the villain and 𝐾𝐮𝐴 froze him in place. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 fell to the floor bleeding. Haro flew in just in time to catch her. Denki and Hitoshi were crying and screaming her name. They had to be held back by Mr. Aizawa and All Might, who was crying as well. Everyone was crying at this point. Even Endeavor. "Baby, please open your eyes, stay with me. Please," Haro screamed out to her. 𝐾𝐮𝐴 and Emma ran to their friend along with the twins. They kept trying to help her, but nothing was working. Soon a bang came from the door being forced open. Emma and 𝐾𝐮𝐴 got in a fighting position ready for battle, but all they saw was their worried parents. Denki and Hitoshi saw 𝐀𝐮𝐴 in Haro's arms and ran over to their daughter. "No, no, 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 come on, Shay, stay with us, please," Denki yelled and pleaded while crying. Soon the paramedics came and grabbed 𝐀𝐮𝐴 and brought her to the hospital. It has been a couple of hours for both sides of the screen. People are still crying and worried. Everyone looked back at the stage, to which a portal opened and out stepped Emma and 𝐾𝐮𝐴, still both crying a bit. Everyone looked up at them hoping to get answers. "Is 𝐀𝐮𝐴 all right?" Denki and Hitoshi yelled at them. 𝐾𝐮𝐴 took a deep breath and answered. "She is in the hospital right now getting surgery. They think she is going to be okay. But we have made a decision that won't affect the future or the past, and we think that Shay would want." She stopped and looked up at everyone with tears streaming down her face. It didn't take long for 𝐾𝐮𝐴 to start crying again and hugged Emma tightly with crying in her chest. "We made the decision that Denki Kaminari and Hitoshi Shinso from the past can come to the future to stay for a bit to watch over their daughter. We know you three have gotten close over the time she has been here, so us too and some of the pro heroes have decided that you are welcome to come stay with us for a bit. If you want, that is," Emma finished with a small smile while tears streamed down her face. Denki and Hitoshi looked at All Might and Mr. Aizawa hoping they would say yes. Mr. Aizawa, All Might and Nizu all nodded with a small smile. 𝐾𝐮𝐴 got off Emma and looked at everyone. "We understand you guys have been here for a while and were wondering if you wanted to go back to your or if you want to stay here, because there is a door behind Endeavor that leads to a hall with bedrooms and a fresh boys and girls bathrooms and a kitchen and everything. We don't really know why it's there, but you are welcome to stay there until we return, but the villains will be going back to your world where time is frozen for now," 𝐾𝐮𝐴 said, still crying a bit. Haro came through the portal with a tear-stained face along with Olivia, who also has been crying. Haro pointed to the room where she can fix the screen properly. Olivia nodded and walked to the room while tears go down her face. "Hey Haro, you okay?" Emma asked the crying boy. He shook his head and went back through the portal. "He hasn't talked since it happened," Emma said, crying a bit. 𝐾𝐮𝐴 sighed and ran off the stage crying to her parents and gave them the biggest hug she could give while crying her eyes out. Shoto and Izuku hugged her back while crying a bit as well. Emma still stood on the stage wiping her eyes with her arm, trying to stay strong for everyone. Olivia walked back out of the door and said very quietly, "I fixed it," and then went back into the portal. Emma turned away from everyone and started whipping her eyes again, trying not to cry so much until she felt arms around her stomach. It was Kirishima and Bakugo. They hugged their daughter and told her to let it all out. So she did. She cried and cried, so did 𝐾𝐮𝐴. A half an hour later, the two girls were back on stage while their parents were sitting down still. "Okay, so have you made your decision?" 𝐾𝐮𝐴 asked Denki and Hitoshi. They nodded and stood up holding hands, walking to the stage. "We're coming with you," they both say, standing on the stage. "And have you made yours?" Emma asked the crowd. The villains are already gone, minus 𝐻𝐼𝐻. He is still their principal. Nizu stood up on Mr. Aizawa's shoulder and said, "Yes, we will be staying here until you return. I just have a couple of questions." "Shoot," Emma said with a small smile. "How are we with food, and is there any rules we have to follow?" he asked the two girls. "Okay, so the food is unlimited, so it can never run out, and the rules are that pros will be upstairs and students downstairs. If you're a civilian, you will be with the pros or you will be returned home. And the last rule is that no matter what happens, do not let Endeavor near my family," 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐬 answered while yelling the last bit. "Why must he stay away from his family?" Nizu questioned. This got 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 mad. "Because this asshat has been abusing his family for years, and if you think it stopped with my papa, you are sorely mistaken. He used to hurt me until my parents found out. So if he goes near them, I will come here myself and throw him into the ocean where no one can find him," she yelled at the top of her lungs. Everyone had a look of shock, especially the Todoroki family. They did not know that she was going to tell, but after the shock went away a bit. Nasuo, 𝐻𝐼𝐻, and Shoto stood up and yelled, "He hurt you too." Everyone was speechless. "Yeah, he hurt me, look," 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 said, yelling a bit but not too loud. She pulled up her shirt only to show a huge burn mark the same color as Shoto's face burn. All three boys stood there in rage, and Midoriya was furious, but he didn't want to explode yet. Emma tried to stop this before it escalated anymore, but before she could try, 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 made it worse. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 pulled her shirt back down, turned around, eyes closed, and said something that made the four boys snap. "Oh yeah, and he almost killed me and Dad by setting our house on fire while Papa was on patrol one night. And this was when I was 6". 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬, all the pro heroes had a look of hate and anger on their faces, but nothing could beat the three Todoroki boys and Midoriya. If looks could kill, Endeavor would be non-existent right now. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 then said something and dragged the three on stage through the portal. "Oh yeah, and you all have your quirks back now, so go crazy, just don't kill him. If he didn't hurt me, I would have never met 𝐶𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 and Harrow," and then they were gone. Izuku turned on his quirk on his fist, looked up at Shoto, and Shoto smiled and said, "This, don't break your arm." Everyone heard this and looked at the couple. After they looked, the people near Endeavor moved away for safety. Midoriya looked at Mr. Aizawa and All Might, and what they said made him and the Todoroki brothers smile. "Go crazy. Just don't break your arm." Midoriya nodded and faced Endeavor with a smirk everyone was scared of. The people behind or in front of Midoriya moved onto the stage for safety. Soon everyone was on the stage or near the front watching Izuku Midoriya beat up Endeavor very hard, with the Todoroki brothers cheering him on. Endeavor tried fighting back, but he never got the chance. They could all agree on one thing. He deserves this. It's been about 2 to 3 weeks since Denki and Hitoshi went to the future. Everyone is getting along in the room near the theater. Though they have questions about how or why it's there, they decided that they wouldn't ask. Everyone was still in bed and in their PJs, but suddenly they got teleported to the theater in their seats they sat before. Everyone screamed as some of the girls have face masks and bed hair, and some of the boys were half naked with no shirt and breathes only in boxers, only somewhere fully dressed. Immediately everyone started to cover themselves up. When they heard people talking a whoosh sound, they looked up to the stage and saw the portal was open. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 and Emma walked out talking hand in hand. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 laughed at Emma and then realized the crowd or half-naked boys and girls. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 screamed and Emma covered 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬's eyes with her hands. "W should have gave a warning," Emma said, closing her eyes. "Why think?" a half-naked Bakugo screamed at his kid. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 turned and faced the screen, closing her eyes. "Okay, everyone go back, get changed, then come back here, we got something to tell you all," 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 yelled out with a red face. Everyone quickly went and got changed and returned to the theater half asleep. "Sorry we dragged you back here without warning," 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 apologized. "It's okay, you didn't know," Mr. Aizawa reassured her. "Sai, anyway, we come to tell you all something," 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 says in a serious voice, making everyone be quiet. 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 had a serious look on her face, as did Emma, that scared everyone as their Denki and Hitoshi wasn't with them. Soon their serious faces turned into a big smile. Everyone was confused. "𝐶𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 is awake and okay, your Denki and Hitoshi and our 𝐶𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 and Megamind are with her now as we speak," she says, looking at the screen. The screen turned on and showed all 5 of them sitting there talking and laughing. 𝐶𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 was sitting up with a hospital gown on. Both Denkis were smiling. laughing and telling jokes, and both Hitoshis were sitting there smiling and laughing, having a good time. They all seemed to forget that they were in the hospital. The screen turned off and 𝐾𝐮𝐬 looked back at all the smiling faces in the crowd. The villains, 𝐼nko and Fayumi, are not there as they got sent home. 𝗏𝗡𝗼 and 𝐻𝗼 are still there hanging out with Shoto and Mido. Everyone was smiling and 𝐾𝐮𝐬 and Emma were happy to see that. Okay everyone, 𝐾𝐮𝐬 said, getting everyone's attention. Since we have been gone for a bit and things have been sad, we figured you would want to see something happy, so we got a friend to get more memes, comics and pictures that will hopefully get you to smile more, she explained with a closed eyes smile so bright people had to close their eyes. Everyone shouted "Day" and "Alright." The people in the Baku squad thought one thing though. Kaminari's missing out of memes and comics, poor him. Okay, so let's get started, Emma said, grabbing 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬's hand walking off the stage. They decided that they were going to sit in between their own parents, so before they went to their parents, Emma gave 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 a quick kiss on the cheek and went to sit down between Bakugo and Kirishima. Bakugo and Kirishima happily moved across one seat so she could sit in between them, same with 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬. The screen then turned on and showed the first one. Yeah, you would pretty much dead if Dad didn't have a plan, 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 said with a closed eyes grin. Couldn't agree more, Shoto said, looking at his daughter. They shared a smile at Mido and then continued to look at the screen. Oh God, Emma said with her hand on her face. Some were confused onto why she said that. Emma took her hand off her face and say the confusion. She sighed and explained. That's me before I dyed my hair red. I hate it, she explained, but whispered the last part. You look better with red hair anyway, 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 said, looking behind her to her girlfriend. Thanks babe, Emma said with a toothy grin like Kirishima's izuku, and 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 flinched hard after seeing this. Oh Deku, is that what your dad looks like? Achiko asked with a smile and a confused look. Izuku and 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 had a look of pure shock and terror on their faces. Some were worried and some were confused. All Might knows who his father really is and was shocked too, but tried not to show it. Both midoriya stayed quiet and continued to look at the screen in silence, trying to calm down a bit. 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 got out of shock and whispered something in her dad's ear. He seemed to calm down a bit and continued to look at the screen with a fake smile, same as 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬. Emma and Shoto knew it was a fake smile, but they didn't want to say anything yet. Everyone was now more confused than ever but continued to look at the screen. Midoriya no. Both Shoto and Emma shouted. Midoriya yes. 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 and izuku shouted back. Definitely yes, a familiar voice said. They all looked to the side of the stage and there they were, Denki, Hitoshi and 𝗏𝗟𝗨 all there. 𝗏𝗟𝗨 was in between with her arms on both Denki and Hitoshi's shoulders so she wouldn't fall over because she is still weak. Pretty sure that's what goes on in both our head 24/7, 𝗏𝗨𝗨 laughed while looking at the screen. 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 stood up and yelled, You sold me in the hospital, why are you here? What, and let some memes, comics and pictures go to waste? You're crazy, 𝗏𝗨𝗨 answered with an eye roll. 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 and Emma looked with their jaws on the floor. How did you know we were doing this? Emma asked, still looking shocked. 𝗏𝗨𝗨 gave them a really face and said, I'm the descendant of a meme god. If it has something to do with memes, I'm there. Momo remembered something and looked at 𝗏𝗨𝗨 and asked, Wait, is that what you meant by God when we first met you? 𝗏𝗨𝗨 smiled and answered, Yep, sure was. 𝗏𝗏𝗨, Denki and Hitoshi returned to their seats with 𝗏𝗨𝗨 sitting in the middle. So are we starting, or are you just going to look like you've seen a ghost? 𝗏𝗨𝗨 said with a smirk. Oh yeah, and Haro is bonding with Matt so he won't be here just yet. They looked shocked but sat down and continued, obviously still worried about their friend. Some chucked at this. To-do sighed, I really am slow, he chuckled. 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 and izuku looked at him and chuckled too. The screen then showed the words. Which squad is better? Obviously the Baku squad, crackheads for life, both 𝗏𝗨𝗨 and Emma yelled. And you Deku squad for life, 𝐾𝐼𝐮𝐬 and Achiko yelled back. After 𝗏𝗨𝗨 yelled, she grabbed her side in pain and groaned in pain. But because the others were too busy fighting what squad was better, they didn't notice, and they were a bit loud because both squads were yelling Minu Mido and 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Eri and Kota looked over to 𝗏𝗨𝗨 and saw that she was in pain and ran over to her. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Are you hurt still? They both asked loud enough so everyone went quiet and noticed she was groaning. No, I'm okay, just a bit sore, that's all, 𝐀𝐮𝐬 explained and gave the two kids a reassuring smile. They both nodded and hugged her tightly, but too tight because 𝐀𝐮𝐬 made a face that it hurt but let out no noise. After they let go, 𝐀𝐮𝐬 gave them a smile and they returned to their seats with their sister. Denki, Hitoshi and Mr. Aizawa went back over to her and asked if she was alright. She of course said yes, but they didn't believe her. "Oh hey, where's 𝐻𝐸𝐴?" she asked, pointing to the empty seat, hoping to change the subject. Unconscious, Izuku answered like it was normal, looking at the screen. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 and Emma had a shocked look on their faces and 𝐀𝐮𝐬 had a huge smile. "Who did it? Was it you, Dad?" 𝐀𝐮𝐬 asked excitedly. "Maybe," he answered, still at the screen. Not even going to ask. Because he deserved it anyway," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 said, looking back at the screen holding where she got stabbed. Mr. Aizawa, Denki and Hitoshi saw that she was holding it and got worried even more. Shirtless sleeves, both Denki and Kirishima yell out with their arms in the air. Everyone laughs at this. The screen showed the words. "And now for some villain students." "Wait, what does that mean?" All Might asked, looking at the three future girls. "We don't know," the three girls answer. "First up, villain Bakugo." "Huh?" Everyone said. Everyone gasped. Emma covered her mouth because she felt like she was going to be sick. Next up, villain Kirishima. Emma had tears in her eyes while she was still covering her mouth. After a minute of the shock slowing down, Bakugo and Kirishima hugged Emma by her sides. Next up, villain Shoto Todoroki. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 looked at the screen in shock once more. Same as everyone else. They were all speechless. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 threw up on the floor, then ran to the bathroom. Emma and 𝐀𝐮𝐬 ran after her. Even though it hurt, 𝐀𝐮𝐬 ran to her friend. Everyone watched the girls leave with worry in their eyes. Next up, villain Midoriya. Continuing, everyone was shocked to see so many of Midoriya because no one could imagine a world where he was a villain. Everyone's shock was replaced with worry as they heard a painful scream come through the bathroom door. "Wait, that's 𝐀𝐮𝐬." Both Denki and Hitoshi stood up worried. The door opened and out came the three girls, 𝐀𝐮𝐬 in the middle with both her arms on 𝐀𝐮𝐬 and Emma's shoulders. "Why did you run?" 𝐀𝐮𝐬 scolded her. "I'm sorry if I was worried for one of my best friends," she yelled back. Denki and Hitoshi ran and grabbed 𝐀𝐮𝐬 and put her back down on her seat. She groaned again in pain but aggressively. "I'm fine, I just shouldn't have ran, okay?" she said, a bit angry because she didn't like the pain or attention she is getting. "Can we please just continue?" she yelled/asked, frustrated. They all gave a worried look at each other, then her, and sat back down. "Thank you," 𝐀𝐮𝐬 sighed. "So what did we miss?" 𝐀𝐮𝐬 asked, looking at her parents. Shoto pointed to the screen, and what 𝐀𝐮𝐬 saw made her heart drop. All those pictures of the dad as a villain hurt her because for as long as she has known he has been a hero. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 sat back down with tears in her eyes while getting hugged from Tadou and Midoriya. Next up, villain 𝐶INSO. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 looked up at the screen in shock and a bit of anger. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 was speechless. Everyone was speechless. Next up, in villain Kaminari. This made 𝐀𝐮𝐬's heart sink. She didn't want to see her dad as a villain. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 started to cry silently, trying not to get so much attention of people. It succeeded kind of. She is getting huged by Denki and 𝐮INSO tightly, but not too tightly that it hurts her. They all stopped hugging and linked arms and continued to look at the screen. Next up, villain Ida. Everyone was still speechless and don't know what to say, especially the teachers and pros. Next up, villain Achiko. Next up, villain Tsu. Next up, villain Ishido. Finally, group/random villain students. Villain students complete. Everyone was staring wide eyes at the last picture that came up. The three future girls were crying now, knowing what the future heroes looked like as villains, the thing they hate the most. Other than and ever, Emma stood up out of her parents' grip, walked in front of 𝐀𝐮𝐬 and held out her hand. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 grabbed her hand and they started to walk to the stage. The portal opened up and they walking in without saying a word. Everyone was left confused, shocked and surprised. They just left without saying something. 5 minutes later and they returned with a smile on their faces while laughing. Everyone looked so confused. 𝐀𝐮𝐬 was the first one to say something. "Why are you so happy about?" she asked the laughing girls. "Because we asked a few people to come here," Emma answered while sitting 𝐀𝐮𝐬 down on the edge of the stage so she can rest. "Who?" 𝐀𝐮𝐬 asked again. Suddenly the portal opened up again, and who they saw they all smiled at and forgot about all the pictures they saw. They saw the future 1 to 6 pro heroes standing before them. All taller and older. Hero Deku and number 2 Hero Shoto, Hero 𝐻𝐿𝐴 and number 4 Hero Red Riot and number 5 Hero 𝐶𝐻𝐽𝐵 and number 6 Hero Megamind. They were all smiling but were also shocked and curious. Okay, so I'm going to call the future people by their hero names and the past by their normal names. I can see you're all confused as to why we came here. Well, we just wanted to go let you all know what we would never become a villain. Even if our life depended on it, we would always choose to be heroes, Deku explained in a deepish voice. How like hell would we be villains? We're better off as heroes anyway. Besides, it's better to save people than to watch them die, 𝐻𝐿𝐴 added, leaning on Red Riot's shoulder. Deku looked through the crowd until his eyes fit all might in his skinny form. Deku closed his eyes and smiled to himself. 𝐻𝐿𝐴 stood up and walked to Deku. "You okay, Dad?" she asks him. He opens his eyes and smiled a bright smile. "Never better," he says as he rubbed her head. "As much as we would love to stay here and chat, we gotta go," Red Riot said, pointing to the portal with his thumb. "Yes, we should be going, we still have a city to protect." Shoto added, "I just realized that Todoroki's hero name is his name, so until they leave I'm calling past Shoto, Todoroki, okay." Okay, Deku nodded and 𝐻𝐿𝐴 and Red Riot waved to EV1, gave Emma a hug and went through the portal. Deku and Shoto did the same thing. Megamind hugged his daughter and went through, leaving 𝐶𝐻𝐽𝐵. 𝐶𝐻𝐽𝐵 sat next to his daughter on the edge of the stage looking down. "You okay, Dad? You seem quiet," 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 asked him. 𝐻𝐿𝐴 and Emma returned to their seats already. "I'm fine, but how are you? You're still hurt, remember?" he reminded and asked her. "I'm fine, Dad, just sore," she answered, leaning on his shoulder. "You know you're stubborn just like your papa," 𝐶𝐻𝐽𝐵 said, looking up at the younger version of him. Hee, and here I thought I got it from you," 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 joked. "Oh, how funny are we," he joked back. "I'm your daughter," 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 said with a yawn and a smile, closing her eyes. 𝐶𝐻𝐽𝐵 smiled down at his sleeping daughter. He sighed and grabbed his phone out of his pocket and messaged Megamind to come help being her home for a bit to rest. About 5 minutes later, came back through the portal and picked up 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 from 𝐶𝐻𝐵's shoulder and carried her bridal style. "𝐻𝐿𝐴 and Emma, I trust you can watch things here for a bit?" 𝐶𝐻𝐵 asks. They both nodded and walked up to the stage. The two pros nodded and went through the portal with 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 still asleep in Mm's arms. Well, I think that about wraps it up. We will go back to check on 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 and then return as soon as possible. Into 𝐶𝐻𝐿𝐴 and Harrow to properly watch the multiverses, 𝐻𝐿𝐴 explained with a smile. EV1 smiled and nodded, then started to walk back into the door with everything in it. But this time they had to show Denki and Hitoshi where to go.